Good evening and welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, Mr. Snidbits,
Welcome back to A Real Study.
Black Girl Marvel,
But I didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Mr. Marvelite,
not knowing anything about the film.
all the movie things,
And like I was locked in right away.
the pre-review with Super Gummy Guru,
Review.
and me, the Real Study movie voice guy. Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. This is Season 1, Episode 17. I am Mr. Snidbits. And tonight we do not have Black Girl Marvel, but that is okay. We still have with me Mr. Marvelite and all the movie things. You guys can say hello. And we are doing
Hello.
some musicals tonight. It's an all musical evening. We're going to be doing the critically acclaimed Tick Tick Boom starring Andrew Garfield, the very interesting story we'll get to here in a minute. We have Les Miserables, if you will. I'm terrible at that, or Les Mis, if you will, which is also critically acclaimed. And then the classic Singing in the Rain. So lots and lots of musicals.
And each one of us will be singing something from each film tonight.
As a bonus.
Yeah. Just bring that
Mr.
on.
Marvelite's wait a minute. Exactly.
He's like, oh wait,
He's like,
suddenly my mics don't work.
I am out of here. So yeah, we can do this in any order. Do you guys want to go chronologically in the order they were released, or do you want to start with Tick Tick Boom?
I say chronologically. Let's do that.
I like it. So we're going to start off with Singing in the Rain then. And Mr. Marvelite's expression on his face when we talked about this movie before the show made me want to go to him immediately to get his take on Singing in the Rain, because it didn't seem like it was favorable, I guess. What do you got for me, Mr. Marvelite?
Okay, I'm going to be brief on this because I'll be honest with you. When I watched this film, there were certain parts where I just had to get up and walk away because it was just not interesting me at all. And then I looked at my wife and I said, this is part because I'm half Arabic. I'm like, I guess this is where it's like the typical white person show, because I was not interested in this at all. And there was one song I think in the film where it was talking about pretty women, and it mentioned them being 16 years old. And I'm like, that's creepy.
Yeah, there was
like there was a lot of creepy factors. And then the guy. Listen, it was so bad for me. I don't even remember names at all in this. And so there was the one scene where they realized how bad the movie was, and they decided to do the dubbing over, and they decided to make it a musical. And if you look, when the guy who was in charge like made the decision to go ahead and dub the voice, those two guys got really close to each other. That was the one part that I was actually most interested in, because I looked at my wife and I said, for this time period, there seemed to be a lot of like a sexual tension between these two guys, because like they got really close into each other's faces, and then the girl pulled the guy off and kissed him, and you could tell like there was like this irritation. And of course it's because um you know she kissed the other guy and not him, and then she kissed him and he fell over. But it was like just the movie itself, other than like, yeah, I just, the studio head being concerned about the actual actresses and actors, like that didn't make sense to me. The There were some good parts about it. I told my wife, I said, I pretty much the only thing I could say that this movie really did for me was like I now have the reference of where singing and what's like how singing in the rain
Why
was like
he's
involved.
singing in the rain?
Yes, exactly. And then also the Good Morning song.
Good morning.
It's not a commercial song anymore to me. It's I get it.
I did my singing
It's just like,
now.
yeah, it's just like the there's a couple songs that Disney does that have a little bit more sinister backgrounds too, but everybody sings them because they're at the amusement parks. But this movie did not resonate with me at all. I felt like it took way too long for that plot twist at the end to kind of like come out. And then like literally I got so tired of it, I got up and went to go make dinner, and my wife stopped the movie and she's like, "You're almost done." And I'm like, "Well, I can wait." It just didn't do anything for me.
fair.
And
That's
I
fair.
like musicals, but
No, and that's one of the reasons we're doing musicals tonight is that all of us do have quite a few musicals that we do enjoy. So there's, you're not going to find us shying away from them. But to hit 3 in a row, although I would argue that Tick Tick Boom is sort of a musical.
I'm
Anyway,
sorry. I just saw your chat message where you said no and you wrote out sad face.
I thought it would come up with an emoji, and no, it just says sad face. Yes,
Sometimes I do that. I just type out sad
It's
face.
just it was easier than trying to hunt for an emoji. So okay, we'll get right down to. I would love to hear what All the Movie Things has to say about Singing in the Rain. And real quick before we get there, the reason Chicago was not on the list is we actually All the Movie Things and I had a discussion about that. We've all seen it, and it was something that I expressed that I didn't love, but we kind of kicked around a few ideas, and then Singing in the Rain kind of got picked instead. We can always do
Right.
it later, and I'm open to that idea.
Yeah, I love Chicago.
For sure. I don't know if Mr. Marvelite likes Chicago.
Yes, it
No,
is.
I
Chicago
didn't.
either.
My contact got loose, and I didn't want to poke
Oh,
my
okay,
eye on
okay. I
camera.
was like, the definite way of things is when people don't
No,
like
listen.
things, they will.
There are
back out
movies
here.
that I would. There are musical movies that I would have like fought for before Chicago. I was not a big fan of it. Like I would have even gone for the Romeo and Juliet, even though that wasn't a musical, but it was like more modern and there was music in it. I would go for that before Chicago. So
You probably choose Moulin Rouge, which is
yes,
another,
yes.
you know,
So you like Boz
Ewan
Luhrmann?
McGregor for just for the fact
yeah,
that
another
Ewan
Boz
McGregor.
Luhrmann one. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so go ahead. All the movie things.
So I'm like on the opposite spectrum of Mr. Marvelite. I like really enjoyed Singing in the Rain. This is my first time seeing it, and it's one of those like I even wanted to make a TikTok about it, just like um doing like a series of films that I should have seen by now, kind of thing, you know. And this is one of them. And like for me, I mean, I was like laughing. I mean, the Lena Lamont character, she
Oh my
she
god.
is hilarious. Oh my god, like she's for me, she steals every single scene. I love that. Like the whole concept, like and like for me being like a film history nerd, this is around the transition between you know the silent film era and when sound was coming about, and they talk about the jazz singer, which was in you know in the history of film, it's a huge deal, very problematic, of course.
Right.
Al Jolson wearing blackface, which this film has similar problematic things. There's a scene with some background dancers that are wearing blackface,
Mm-hmm.
um, and one like very small character has like a speaking part, and you can clearly see the blackface. Of course, there's like some patriarchal things in it. Of course, it's
Oh yeah.
1952 when this was released. Um, I w- and with that said, like they did some really great. There were some really great editing things they did in here that I was like really blown away by. Like that one sequence, that very long musical sequence when he's explaining like, "Oh, I had this idea for this one thing," and then they go off into like showing you what his idea was for the musical sequence. Um, it was so vivid. So like from a technical perspective, I was really blown away by some of the things they were doing. I mean, they're doing like compositing and stuff back then in 1952, which is crazy. Um, and and like I was just really impressed with like how physical these actors had to be.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're like they look like they're just like literally like bouncing around and like they could just move. And I'm like, how are they not just like? And lights back then were hot as hell. I mean, those were like
Yeah, they
super
didn't
hot
show
lights.
exhaustion or fatigue at
Yeah,
all.
like
No,
they're
they
still
didn't.
going.
And long
Yeah,
cuts
yeah,
too. Long takes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's like because they didn't really have technology to like, there's no steady cam, there's no, it's all dolly and crane. That's really all they have, and the tripod, because they have to like stay pretty relatively stationary.
Right.
Um, yeah, so for me, from like being a film history nerd, like I love that whole thing because there was a lot of this like these trials and tribulations they had to go through when transitioning. They all had to like kind of keep up with each other, and they all like developed their own systems too. So it was very disjointed, and like that whole the one scene says it all when they first are trying to record Lena,
With the
and like
bush.
she keeps turning away. Yeah, like
You
with
can
the
hear
like yeah,
her
it's so great. Yeah,
talking. Yeah, yeah.
oh my god. I mean, I almost feel like she's. This is like one nerdy thing, but I doubt it. But I was like, she sounds a little like Harley Quinn in a way. I was like, I wonder if there's some inspiration from Harley because she's this blonde and she like has this very specific accent. I just thought it was a
Well, and
fun
she
concept of
seemed
like,
unassuming, but we find out she's
right,
ferocious, really, in the
yeah.
end.
Oh, later
Yeah.
on, yeah,
Yeah,
no, totally. She was
yeah.
like, no,
So it kind of,
yeah,
I mean,
and like
her
all
inspiration for Harley Quinn does make some sense.
right,
So,
right. I just thought it was kind of a fun thing, but
well, you can also tell that,
yeah,
like,
I really did
sorry.
enjoy it more than I thought I would. Yeah.
No, and
So
I'm with you on this. All the movie things. I was a little shocked at how much I actually enjoyed this.
right.
Found
So
myself
am I.
giggling and at some of the jokes and the whole self-referential Hollywood thing. It's so funny because we live in an era where everybody's like, "Oh, that's so cool! Look at how edgy people are," and I'm like, they did that
Right.
then, right? Like that's not new.
Mhm.
But
Right.
everybody thinks it's new, and I'm like, these stories are still being retold. These are all still. Singing in the Rain
Oh
was
yeah.
cutting ground that nobody had done in film before. That now we kind of
Yeah.
take for granted in a lot of ways.
Totally. Yeah.
So for that, I appreciate what it is. Gene Kelly, wow. Debbie Reynolds, wow. Both.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
watching Debbie at this age was like watching Carrie at the same age in a lot of ways for me. So I kept
Yeah.
feeling like I was watching young Carrie Fisher because they were so similar
Mhm.
in the way they acted. I'm certain that Carrie picked up a lot of her techniques from her mother. Why wouldn't you? Um,
Right. Yeah.
and I think for me the standout, don't get me wrong, Gene Hagen as Lamont was fantastic, but I think that
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cosmo was for me the standout. I think that
He's pretty great too. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
was always with the little wisecracks and the fun lines and the like, let me get you a
Yeah.
cigar, oh let me take that back, kind of lines.
Yeah.
And I really did like that. To Mr. Marvelate's point about RF, about the studio heads giving a crap about anybody, they didn't. And I
Right.
think that they knew that when they
Oh yeah.
made this movie. It's a self-referential, and then it's also what's the word I'm looking for? It's gonna slip my mind. Doesn't matter. It's
Butt
aware of
kissing.
itself. It knows that it's making fun of Hollywood
Right.
the whole time.
Oh
Even the
yeah.
way they
Totally.
enter the
Yeah.
film premiere at the beginning of the film, and the like lady on the mic
Yeah.
is
Mhm.
all like kind of poking fun at Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in a way, I liked that as well because again, in the 90s, we thought we were poking fun at Hollywood like it was new or something. Um,
Yeah.
so for me, definitely the problems with the film. Anything made before like if anything before 1990, before 2000. Actually, no, I was just thinking about the like heyday of anything goes in film, and that's really between 1999 and 2010, where you could
Mhm.
just say and do anything. And now we're all like, wait a minute, we can't go that
Yeah.
far.
Right.
It's kind of like two ends, like bookends for me. I don't know. So I really enjoyed
Yeah.
the
That
singing,
makes
the
sense.
performances. There were a few performances I was like, all right, can we move on?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
But even some of the co-opting of different music, because there's a moment where they do music, they do some, I think, mariachi music for a moment where they're all singing it,
Yeah.
and then they
Right. They
do. I don't remember what the other culture, but they definitely
yeah. They
straight
do a
ripped it
few
off.
different ones. Yeah.
Right. And so I see all the problems. I do. But if you're
Mhm.
talking about just a fun musical with an interesting story that's really telling a story about Hollywood, about Broadway, about
Mhm.
actors who get forgotten and then get to rise. I don't know. It's a story in a story. I don't know. There's a lot there. It's
For
almost
sure. Yeah.
Inception-y. I don't know. I'll stop. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that
No.
was my take on it
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We are one
Yeah. I like
down, Will.
that.
So yeah, Mr. Marvel, I still want to hear more of why you
No,
don't like
I
it, 'cause
really don't
do.
have. I don't have more. I'm sorry. It's just listen. There are times like I loved It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, I get it.
Mhm.
But like I don't know. Just Sing in the Rain just did not do anything for me. And I like old musicals, but like it just I found no like it just did not hit me. It did not hit me as anything interesting. It like I told my wife at one point because we were doing some things. I'm like, I got to get through this song this movie. Let's go ahead and put it on while we're doing things because we're trying to get like decoration like decor and stuff changed in the house. And I realized about 20 or 30 minutes into the movie, I'm like, honey, I don't even think I paid attention to this thing at all. Like it hasn't caught my attention at all. Like
Sure.
it was
Mhm.
like, and it was hard for me. And I think this is one of the first few times that like there have been movies that we've recommended on the show that I never had an interest in watching, but it was never like I'm not gonna like this type thing. Like what was
Right.
it, Love Simon, things like that. Like they were just never on my
Mhm.
radar.
Sure.
Singing in the
Right.
Rain, I knew it was there, and I'm like, I guess
Oh
because I
yeah.
like films, I should maybe. Whoa, Joker!
Yeah, I had to stop. We just got 5
Oh
gift
geez. Yeah.
stubs from Joker to Captain Salty Dog, Biggie, Lady Crossheart, Ray Ray Woo, and Mrs. Marvelite. All now are
Jeez.
sub
Wow.
to The Real Study. Thank you for your generous
Awesome.
donation, sir, and all the subscriptions. And welcome to The Real Study, those 5 of you. As we were hearing from Mr. Marvelite about how Singing in the Rain is more like singing in the snooze fest.
It's not even. Listen, I get there are some values like the
Snoozing in the rain.
tap dance scene when they realized that they could just make the movie a musical. I liked little bits like that, and I was definitely interested when they did that whole number when he like all the movie things said when he's like and then we would do something like this and they take to the like the story of the guy coming into the city and
Yeah. Yeah.
wanting to get started and he moves his way up from thing to thing and I was like that's very reminiscent to the old style of like telling a story. Like I could immediately see this on Broadway.
Right.
But I was just like I was waiting for certain moments to like Singing in the Rain. I was waiting for that to
Right.
finally get
Yeah.
an understanding of why it
Yeah.
was important and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
other than that, I'm just like there was a lot for me, and I'm not saying that everybody has to feel the same way. I just it felt more throwaway for me than anything
Oh
else.
yeah.
Like I can say I've seen it now, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's one of those things.
but
Yeah. I've
yeah,
definitely
but
been
I'll
there where.
probably never watch this again
Right.
unless I'm in a nursing home and I can't control the television.
Change the TV!
Yeah.
Right, something like that. I
Yeah.
can't wait
I
to
mean,
see Mr. Marvelite doing that.
I definitely can see like where you're
In the
coming
retirement home,
from
it'll only
too.
be Marvel movies playing
There you
for me.
go.
So.
Yeah.
You'll call it Marvelite
That's my
Retirement
franchise.
Home. Yeah, that's your franchise. No, I get where you're coming from. And like Brian was just saying, I've been there too. There have been movies where no matter how hard I try, no
Singing
matter
in
how
the
many
Dream.
times I put them on, I can't get into them. And I try. There's some that I really do try. I give my
Yeah.
solid O. But I'll tell you that I find, and I keep saying this to people, every 5 or 10 years, if you even if you hated a film, I'd say try it again because you are going
Yeah.
to be in a different headspace and a different person, and you may
That's
like
true.
it. So
some movies no.
no, I'm certain there's some movies no, but
Oh yeah. I mean, like Birth of a Nation.
no,
You don't need to be watching that.
no, I don't even
Like
need to sit in history class
There's
and
a
get
lot of
clips.
reasons behind that one, but
from a technical reason, like in film history, yeah, blah blah blah, whatever. But no one needs to watch it. It just needs to be like a freaking bullet point,
A footnote.
and that's it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a terrible.
There are plenty of
terrible
movies
thing.
that did the
Up
same
and
thing
down.
after you could use as reference. You wouldn't need
Yeah.
to use it
Yeah.
itself. And the fact that it's still used in some
No.
film classes is annoying
Yeah.
because they actually show it. But we,
Yeah,
Anyway.
we talked about it, but that was about it. We didn't like actually watch it, and we just talked about like
and it makes
editing
sense.
was a big deal, and like yeah. So
And it, every iteration. I mean, there are things we can talk about throughout history that even though evil people did them, they still ultimately led to some good things. And so there's always interesting things in history like that. So
yeah.
historical perspective is never a bad thing from my point of view. That's why even watching a movie like Singing in the Rain from a historical perspective, which is what we're doing, nothing we watch that old is going to be anything but a piece of history.
No, totally, yeah, because it's definitely going to be like it's always going to have some problems in it, you
Right.
know, from like a cultural perspective.
We
and,
didn't
like, a
walk into it in
societal
52.
perspective.
Had we, that would
Yeah,
be a little
exactly.
different.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, I would be blown away.
And Mr. Marvelite, do you think you
Please.
could, if you could erase all you know and walk into that movie in 1952 with that mindset of an American in 1952, do you think it's possible you may have enjoyed it then? Or is it the mindset now?
would I be the same person that I am going back
You
into
probably wouldn't be the
1952?
same person. No.
I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about like interest in Marvel and stuff like that. I'm talking about like
You'd have your same convictions,
half
sure.
Arabic individual because
Oh
I'm
yeah.
Oh,
agreed.
in some cases I probably would not have been able to walk into that place.
That's
you
fair.
know. So,
But let's say you could. Let's say it was in New York and
Okay.
there's enough of a melting pot that you could just walk right in.
I don't know.
Stew on it. We can
I
just
don't
think
know.
about it.
Because
I think these thought experiments are fun.
I
is
think
all.
back then I think there were people. Well, here's the thing. I think a lot of times there are people who did not do problematic things back then, but there are still, but they can identify it later on. They don't know that those things are problematic.
Sure.
I think if you look back at things that
Right.
we were interested in or liked in the 90s, even the 80s or the 90s, like you might say, like one of the, your quintessential films of the 80s was Big Trouble in Little China. That is highly antagonistic to Asian people,
Right.
Yeah.
but a lot of people are like, that was a good movie, but really it wasn't, if you think about it in that aspect. So I mean, I think we all have our own versions of Singing in the Rain.
Sure.
So I'm not going to completely rule it out.
I was just
I don't know.
curious, really honestly,
Oh,
because for
yeah.
me it's thought experiment, because it's I
Yeah.
think a lot of movie viewing comes from when rather than the movie itself. The movies are always in a weird way kind of out of time while still sitting in their time, because of the art form that they are. And if they're made right, they sit completely out of time because it doesn't feel like you can tell when they were made, other than maybe production quality, but even then sometimes. So I just think it's interesting. I always come from this perspective because a lot of my background comes from sociology and history. And so I'm always
Mhm.
thinking about these things from like, not did I like this movie right now? Sure, yes, that's a huge part of the show and what we do, but from a historical perspective, especially with these classics, is
Yeah.
also
Now, with me
fun.
saying what I've said, I'm not going to rate it as lowly as I think some people would think I'm going to rate it.
Interesting.
But
Mhm.
because I think there are some technical things that were good about it. I think that you have to put in the factor that it's more classical, or it's more of a classic than something that's relevant to today.
Mhm.
But I'm not. But again, we're talking about
Yeah.
preferences as well. So yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It wasn't
neither-
lost on me too, like how white it is. I mean, like I was trying to find, you know, some other, you know, race
It's
in
all
there,
white.
just something
It's
like
all white.
Cis
like whew,
white male.
yeah,
Let's be
cis
very
white
like
for
cis
sure.
white
Yeah,
male, because
just
Debbie Reynolds is in it,
yeah,
but she's still like an object of whatever the studio's deciding or whatever,
right. Yeah.
whatever Lockwood wants and things like that. So like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's
Mhm.
like you said, patriarchy is loaded. Like, I don't think
Oh
you
yeah.
can find a film before 70 really that's going to have much in the way
No,
of
totally.
feminism.
Yeah.
Even like how they played on her emotions at the end, even though they were going to do it to benefit her. Like
Right.
Yeah,
I would have brought her in on that
I
if that
know,
were the
dude.
case.
Because
But
what if
it's
she
like,
what if she cracked her voice as out of shock? Like,
Right.
then the people were like, "Oh, she sucks," or whatever.
Mhm.
Um,
Something that was interesting to me too was like Chris Evans is gonna play Gene Kelly here in a movie coming up, and I was like,
Interesting.
and I was looking at Gene Kelly, I was like, okay, I can see him, I can see Chris Evans as after watching this movie, like it really
I mean, yeah. I
hit
mean,
home to me that I can see him doing that,
can I
like
see
totally.
Gene Kelly playing Captain America? Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Um,
right.
that's interesting. I know Chris is a physical guy. I know that he does a lot of the action sequences and things like that. But does he have the
Yeah.
dancing chops to be Gene Kelly? Because you gotta have the
See why
dancing
not,
chops to
you
be
know?
Gene Kelly. Like, if you don't, it would be kind of weird.
he throws
Yeah.
himself into whatever he does, so we'll see what happens.
True.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
no. It's exciting though, because Chris has grown
Mhm.
a lot in the years. Come a long way from
Yeah.
not another teen movie.
Yeah. And he did some singing in that one, so
That's true. Um,
yeah, kind of singing.
I do want to talk about the dancing in this movie because it's a huge
Mhm.
highlight of the film. And like you were saying, the stamina that it took for them to do these things was pretty ridiculous.
Jeez, yeah.
But the how in sync Gene and Donald were in
Yeah.
all of their vaudeville sequences blew my mind. I almost wanted to like rewind and go, "What the hell?
Yeah. I
How
know, I
did
was
they get
watching
so
it
on
too,
sync?"
like, man, yeah. And they're like going up and down on chairs and platforms and all these different like
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
It's just
even
it's
Gene
so
singing in the rain, like dancing in the water
yeah.
and then up and down and
Yeah.
not slipping. I mean,
Yeah.
some crazy stuff there.
Yeah, it was
Um,
really great. Yeah.
I bet you that water hurt back then because it would have been like full blown fire hoses. It wouldn't have been
Oh yeah,
super
yeah.
sets with like a, because I know nowadays they can even get wild with like a tent set up with like trickle rain and all sorts of weird things,
Yeah.
but it had to hurt to sing in the rain. Like,
Mhm.
and the cop, what was the cop? What
He
does
was
it
so in
matter if
love.
a grown
I know.
man wants to
I saw
splash in the puddle, man?
I know that yeah, that thing. I know that knows that too. I'm like, oh, what's
He
the
was a
stop here?
beatnik.
Like Jesus.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
It's
What are you doing, you
He was a
beatnik?
communist. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Communist dancing in the
Get your
rain.
poetry out of here with this. Yeah. No, that
Probably
makes
like the birth of a
sense.
nation there.
Yeah, no.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. It's definitely more of a riot than I thought it would be, like a ruckus riot in that way. Like
Right.
it's fun. It was. I knew it was supposed to be a musical, but I didn't know it was fun and funny.
Yeah, I
Musicals
didn't
to
either.
me were
Yeah, yeah.
always just like dry.
Is it just me, or
Right,
does do I want? I would like just to see the bad film.
Oh,
Like
so
Yeah.
that actually
yes.
that
That would
that
be
interested
that would
me
be
more
good. Yeah,
than
yeah.
no, no, no.
No.
Yes, yes, yes.
I
I
loved
love
that
you.
scene.
I love
That
you.
was one of the
I love
best.
you. I love you. Although I love you. He's like, who wrote this? Like, and that was
Somebody got
always
paid
like,
to
that
write
was like,
this.
yeah, that was always his like go-to line though. Like he just came up with that. Like, yeah. And they're like, who wrote this?
Oh, what? Technically, he was
Technically, he was
singing in the
milk.
milk.
Right.
That doesn't roll off the tongue the same.
Mhm.
That's gross, and even
Well,
worse.
and like, well, even rain today is hard to shoot. You have to
Imagine
backlight
the
rain
smell
all the
after.
time. So
Well, and like milk is
Yeah.
sticky because it's the sugars. So like he
What
was
type? What was
sticky.
the pin? Was it 2% or
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
does that depend on the camera?
I'm skimming in the rain? Or skimming in the milk?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I probably milked this for too long. I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh, where's my
You're in like dad joke
It's
pun mode with all the
it's
Marvel
utterly
jokes.
bad. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Anyway, I did have to say that I was
None
watching
of them
TikTok.
are very good.
So I do have to say I got my joke sting ready for you guys every time you do it now. So just go for it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
No, now I ruined it. I shouldn't have told you.
I'm
So
yeah, I'm kind of dry now.
Yeah.
So I was watching TikTok before the show, and I was actually watching somebody who I don't know. I swear all my devices are listening to me because I didn't hear about Singing in the Rain
Oh,
until
yeah.
we started talking about it for the show, and now I see it everywhere. It's on my feed. It's showing up like in news
Yeah.
segments. I'm like, what the hell? So apparently, everything that went on between Lamont and Kathy, as far as the dubbing the voice, was what really occurred in the time, and it was actually very
Yeah.
common. But instead of it being this twist in the movie, oh boy, I did a joke sting for a chat comment. So anyway, they did that kind of stuff a lot, but it wasn't where they were fighting for contracts. It was literally because the studio refused to let that be known because they didn't want it to hurt the production. Rather, it was never about the actresses. It was always about the studio and the production. And so I think there were two actresses that this news segment mentioned, and I thought it was really interesting. I'm like, wow, this wasn't just a trope in Singing in the Rain. It really did happen, which is cool.
Yeah.
So.
I also think there when you're talking about the change between silent film and with audio and everything, you have to consider that some of the silent film stars may not have been best translated when they were actually heard, and so in a lot of cases to keep them relevant, they may have done the dubbing just to extend their career because they still had contracts and the studio didn't want to just like.
Or they were even good on film, so they were good presence wise.
Right.
They looked good. They knew how to deal with the sets and the directors and various things. So yeah, for sure.
Well, like everything had to shift too, because like because there's a scene that's very accurate as far as the research I've learned about with film history. Is like filmmaking when the silent film era was like an assembly line. They had all these like there's a scene where they're walking together and they're walking by all these different sets. Those are all different silent films being simultaneously shot because they don't have to worry about sound. And then now with sound, you can't do that anymore. You can't simultaneously shoot all these things right next to each other.
Studios
so they,
must have hated
logistically, yeah, like exactly. Logistically, they had to like tear everything apart.
Oh, that would suck.
Yeah.
I mean, every time they changed,
mics and stuff.
As
Yeah,
soon
every
as
time there was a change.
Right, every time when the digital age happened, now everybody's got to hire out to some company and take all their footage somewhere and deal with it that way. Yeah, I could imagine it would have been a nightmare. Same thing with when they switched from to color. The studios had to start getting all the cameras and getting all the film and getting everything
different film.
Right. Everything changed, and then lighting more than likely changed when color film came along. I doubt that it stayed exactly the same. So yeah, it's just interesting because I think
Yeah.
it's fun to think about films that do highlight moments throughout Hollywood and how they've changed. Um, what was I going to say? Why did my brain stop? It's doing that a lot today. It's okay. Um, I think the other two films are going to get us talking quite a bit more than this. This was really just more of a touch upon a classic. Mr. Marvelite has little to say on the topic, so I don't want to keep pushing him, which is fine because if you don't have anything to say about it, that's better than being forced.
Can
to
I
talk
also
about
just
it.
say, if anything, watching these films, it makes me also appreciate the fact that we don't wear our pants that high anymore.
Right.
Like really, like
Yeah,
I was
the
just
style
like,
is so different. I
for a
was
big guy
watching.
like me too, it would look really bad. Like it just, ugh.
No, for sure. Will mentioned makeup as well was a good point. That changed dramatically when they switched to color.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So microphones have come a long way since the stuffing it into the giant rose on the side of the woman's neck in order to get the volume.
And everything was hardwired back then too. Like you can, and it went on to literally to a record.
Yeah,
They
I
put it
know.
on vinyl or wax back then. So, and then eventually it got transferred onto the actual film. You know, later on. But
I love the way they made fun of the director as just this like nervous wreck in every way.
Yeah. He was a basket case. Yeah,
I felt bad for him. I was
Pretty
like,
good.
oh,
Totally.
was it Pietro? No, something like that. Felt bad for the guy, but Pierre, I think, is what it was. But yeah. So why don't we go ahead and rate this film, and we can move on to Les Mis, which is the next movie chronologically of these films. We'll go in the same order. Mr. Marvelite, what do you rate Singing in the Rain?
It's a classic. There are things that our society is kind of based off of tropes of like old classics and things like that. Mind you, this movie will not be what I think of when I think of Singing in the Rain. Unfortunately, that has been etched in my mind with Tom Holland dressing up in drag on the lip sync battle. That's all I think of when I think of Singing in the Rain now. That and then Singing Umbrella. But regardless, I would say, for the fact of like the history behind it, and everything else, I'd probably give it a 5. I'm not going to watch it again. It's not something that, again, unless like I was really pushed to watch it again, I would probably just say, you go do what you're doing. I'm going to go play some Fortnite. So literally like,
in the rain.
I'm just,
Fortnite in the rain.
Fortnite in the rain.
12-year-old me would not have given this the time of day.
That's what I was thinking too. I was thinking of the remix version of Under My Umbrella. Anyway, all the movie things.
Yeah, I like really enjoy this more than I thought I would. I mean, like there were moments I was like laughing out loud. Like I was like, just the Lena Lamont character just stole every scene for me, and so I gotta give this an 8. But 12-year-old me, definitely would not have any interest in this. Like I would not be watching Singing in the Rain.
I think all of us proved that by none of us seeing it when
none
we
of
were
us
12.
Yeah,
I think that's a fair point. And we all had access to it, no doubt, at some point at the video store or with our parents. There's no doubt it was available to me, and I avoided it. So I'm with you there. I'm gonna right there with all the movie things. It's an 8. Setting aside anything problematic in it, the structure of the film, the lighting, the sets, the dancing, the music, the acting from the three mains is phenomenal. And again, I don't think that Cosmo gets the credit. I think he was a standout.
Yeah, he was really great.
And he kind of stole the show from Gene in a way, which I think is part of what they were trying to do. But I'm not sure Gene noticed. But so I definitely
he had that one really great number too, where like the very comedic number he did, where
the vaudeville piece that he did, where he smashed through the wall and everything,
like with the wood. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was I loved that.
I loved it. I did too. And I did love that they were going back far enough to go pre-silent era, because that's when these guys came up. So like that's pretty cool. Childhood favorite, Muncie, totally makes sense. Muncie also rates it an 8. So
nice. Okay, cool.
All right, let's move on to Les Mis. I'm going to just say it like that and keep it simple for myself, because I am not French. Now, this is an interesting one because this is a remake of a play, which is a remake of a book, and then
Yeah.
there's a tandem film that was made kind of after the book, but kind of after the play was made. We'll get into it.
Right.
Um,
Mhm.
so this is an 1862 novel, post French Revolution, post Second French Revolution, and then of course telling the story of the Second French Revolution to some degree. It takes place at that same era. And hello, Commander Crossheart. Thank you for stopping by and hosting. You did earn a subscription from Joker earlier when he popped in, so there you go. So just to make sure everybody knows, so we've got the novel from 1862. Then that was made into a play
lot.
on Broadway.
Mhm.
I believe, was it in the 70s or was it the 80s? I'd have to look that up.
I want to say 80s, but
That's what I want to say as well, because I remember the poster specifically a lot from that era. So then
yeah,
they
exactly.
made the play, which of course is where all the music for this movie comes from.
It was 1980.
1980. Okay, so that's why I was thinking 70s, 80s.
1980.
So that was pretty
Yeah.
close. And then, of course, in I think the mid 90s, they released and made a Les Mis movie starring Liam Neeson and there are a few others. It doesn't matter who it starred, but it was just basically the move or the book turned into a movie, and then
Mhm.
there you go. I mean, pretty simple drama essentially. This is the play, but with a lot of the kind of background from the novel thrown in. It seems because it's a lot of everything, and it's.
Yeah.
I'll stop there and try to get your guys' opinions
It's a
on it
lot.
because
Yeah.
this is a heavy duty film. One of the
Yeah.
heaviest films we've ever touched on this show. So I want to hear all the movie things since we started with Mr. Marvel last time. Let's hear what all the movie things thinks. And hello, Black
Yeah.
Girl Marvel.
Oh, hi. Welcome. She can chime in while we're talking. But yeah, Les Mis. This one I had to like kind of push myself through. Like I was not really feeling like the second Russell Crowe starts singing, I check out. Like, I'm sorry.
Thankfully, it
Russell
wasn't
Crowe's
much.
really trying. Right. You know, I mean, Hugh Jackman's doing great. Like he's just, I mean, he's really great in this. Um, it was from like a production design perspective, it like blows my mind. It's amazing. You know,
Flawless
cinematography is
almost.
great.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's insane. And like it's, I felt like it was almost kind of relevant today. Like that, at least the haves and the have-nots. Like how far apart everyone was. You know, as far as like class. There's just a lot about class and everything, um, and so that part stuck with me. But it was just hard to get through because it seemed like there's a lot. They like really try to cram in a lot in this. So for me, it was just like it kind of I really had to kind of push through it. So
Fair, Mr.
that's the
Marvelite.
gist. Yeah.
Um, I actually really like this film. First of all, Hugh Jackman never disappoints when it comes to singing roles. A lot of people, they realize, everyone thinks of him as Wolverine from the X-Men series, and that was really where he got his
Mhm.
big start. But he was definitely a singer, and he
Oh
was
yeah.
definitely doing musicals before that. And
Mhm.
so for him to be able to do that on stage or on film, for it's something that was a little bit more of a mainstream production, um, really got him out there. And I think that's kind of why we have things like, him doing like The Greatest Showman and stuff like that, because,
Mhm. Yeah.
showcasing his voice is I think is very important. I mean, he does fantastic. I also have
Mhm.
to say, Anne Hathaway's role in this film, she really knocked it
Mhm.
out of the ballpark.
Mhm.
Just the emotion she shares, the singing and everything else. I loved Sacha Baron Cohen
Yeah.
in this film, like
That
that
whole sequence was
whole
really great.
master
Yeah.
of the house, like that
Mhm.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
just that was just like I get like I've never seen Les Mis in Broadway or anything like that or off
Mhm.
Broadway,
Mhm.
but I will tell you, I don't know how they could do that scene better because just going from room to room in a
Right.
house and having those different circumstances, like
Mhm.
translated the film was fantastic.
Yeah.
So definitely, Cassette. You definitely fall in love with the little girl. I it's Amanda Siegfried or
Seyfried, yeah.
Seyfried, yeah. Not so much of a fan of her. I kind of lost interest in Cosette at that point. And then you have oh, what's her name? I forget it now. Give me just a second. The one who is in love with the one
Yeah.
with Marius, um, uh, Eponine, Eponine, I guess is what her name was. Like, I fell in love with her as soon as she started singing. You know, her mainstay for her part, and it was definitely interesting. You know, you love the kid. I liked the telling of the revolution and seeing the struggle.
Mhm.
For me though, the story I felt like got a little bit rushed at the end, but when he's in the church and he's passing away and you start hearing
Spoilers.
um at this point it's 2012. I mean,
I know, yeah.
1862 novel.
forget it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you haven't read the novel, you've had, you know, a couple hundred
You've
years,
had
and then
since
now,
before you were born.
yeah,
Get
exactly.
on it.
Uh-huh.
You know, you've lived until this moment, but like when you started hearing like all of the people during that revolution that are singing Beyond the Gates,
Mhm.
and basically, and you have that, you know, do you hear the people sing like that? Still gives me chills, kind of hearing it, and yeah, so I just loved it. I like that film.
Mhm.
Nice. You know what's really interesting is
Minus Russell Crowe.
I cut right between the two of you because the moment Russell Crowe started
Funny.
singing, I felt exactly what all the movie things. I was like, "What is going on here?
Oh God. Yeah.
This is terrible." Please, like, don't get me wrong. He's foreboding. He fits the part,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. Like
he
as far
does.
as
I don't.
performance goes,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it
don't
was
feel the
yeah,
emotion that I'm supposed to from Javert
not
in
from
a
the
lot of the
singing. Yeah.
scenes that I do from every other actor. And this thing
Mhm.
against Russell Crowe, they wanted a good name, and I think he has a good voice. I think he can sing well. I just don't think that he could sing that particular character's part as well. It just
Yeah.
Right.
there was through the whole movie I was like, okay, why? And I've seen the story before. I know the story of Jean Valjean and Javert, and I know this story already, so I wasn't surprised by anything. It was more,
Mhm.
can I hack the music and do I like the way they interpreted it?
Yeah.
And once I pushed myself into the church scene where he first steals all the silver and runs away, and then
Mhm.
he starts talking to the preacher's like, "Oh, I'm gonna let you go." The way that Hugh Jackman plays Jean Valjean just drew me in so quickly.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And yeah, if it had been reversed, I would have gave up on this movie. If Russell Crowe was Jean Valjean, I would have walked the f away from this flick. I don't think I could have done it because I just
Right.
we would have had him the whole
Yeah.
time, and you know, no offense to him, but I just don't think it would have worked as well. Um, the part of this story that always puzzles me is the Javert character. He's so committed to the law that it's all he cares about. It's literally all he cares about. And
Mhm.
I guess living in our times, it's hard for me to relate to that on that
Yeah.
level,
Mhm.
because that's patriotism for France and the king on a level I can't even imagine.
Well, it seemed like he also had something with like religion uh,
Religion as well, yeah.
connected to him there. Yeah.
Well, also, you know, he just has this disdain for anybody who's committed a crime, and he looked
Yeah.
at any individual, whether they, you know, because Jean Valjean, um, the whole idea is
Mhm.
he stole bread to feed his family, and
Right.
he
He's
got, you
dying.
know, years in
Right.
prison,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and so because of that, he's this horrible criminal that everyone looks against, and he has to change who he is. And he's the least of the people that would have committed crimes in this time.
Right.
Yeah.
It was like it's like shoplifting, and you know he's been marked as this, you know,
Yeah.
horrible person that they will
Oh
hunt
yeah.
down forever. And it really does show the societal disparity of people in that time frame and that
Mhm.
society.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But
I see that
sadly, it's very
aspect. Yeah.
comparative to what we have now.
Right. That's
Yeah.
why it's
That's
Because
what
you
that's
look
I
what
at
struggle
was.
with the
Yeah.
character. I understand all the totally. I get the disparity,
Mhm.
but I want whenever I'm watching any movie, I'm trying to relate to both the protagonist and the antagonist so that I can understand the struggle and break it down. And in this particular story, unlike maybe like the Count of Monte Cristo, which is a very similar story,
Uh-huh.
I end up not understanding him enough for me to understand his actions. I understand why he's
Right.
doing what he does, but his final actions, that's conviction, man. Like that's some serious conviction.
Yeah.
To take
I
that
think,
drastic a measure.
yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Well,
I
my
don't know.
thing too was like it was regardless of how much Jean Valjean had like changed his life completely since, you know,
Mhm.
breaking parole and everything. He became this like pillar of the community,
Right.
literally. And like
So
it's
much
like
so that
that
they
didn't matter to
gave,
him. Like what the
yeah,
hell? Yeah.
they gave Javert to him. He was so good. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just crazy. But
Yeah, and the only reason why he was found out was because he refused to let someone take the fall for
Right.
himself.
He was always
right.
the good guy.
Even yeah, he
Yeah.
was always the good guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think what happens is you also remember, like, if we look back at that society, you know, Javert was probably in law because his family was in law. And it was this
Mhm.
this ancestry type pride, and for him it was ingrained
Right.
from probably his childhood. And so law for him was as much religion as it was anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for him to accept the help of a fugitive, that he and not have the idea of mercy, you know there was only it was either accept disgrace or take his own life. And we find he went to the extreme. So
Right.
for
Which
me, it
is a
made
brutal.
sense.
That was more brutal than I expected it when he hit
But
it.
at least he didn't have any more singing numbers after that.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch. No,
Yeah.
that's fair. Anne Hathaway, although such a small part, you did mention her, Mr. Marvelite. Holy
Mhm.
crap. When she started
Hmm.
singing
Exactly.
that scene, I don't
Hmm.
know how she as an actress pulled that off because she's acting, full blown acting,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
singing those parts belted. Like not just singing them, but like belting them. And
Well, I
it
think
moved
too.
me.
Another thing is I don't think they were using like playback in this. They were singing on set, I believe,
That
for
makes
this
sense
one.
because you can
Like,
see,
Yeah.
all the
yeah, like I
throat,
mean, like
and
yeah,
everything.
and Hugh Jackman's head is like
Yeah, bubbling. Well, his head
bulging
is
in his
usually
veins, like
popping
yeah,
out.
his very yeah, he's very
Yeah.
He
veiny,
is.
dude. But yeah, but another thing for me too is like I'm not a big fan of like these types of musicals where they like sing out their dialogue.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like so that's another thing that was kind of hard for me to but I can appreciate a lot of what you guys are saying too. It's like yeah,
Repo
there's a lot of great stuff.
is like
Yeah,
this, right?
I know
And
exactly.
same
I
with
didn't
like
like
Into the
Repo
Woods. Into
either.
the Woods is like
Yeah,
this, and there are a few
yeah,
others.
yeah.
You're right. It's interesting, and it's definitely Broadway-ish. Like that's a Broadway thing. Like that's what they do.
Right.
So when they translate
Hmm.
these Broadway style musicals to film, it doesn't always work. Now this one did, and I think this movie did
Right.
really, really well. And I was actually working the theater when this came out, and I could not believe the number of people with gray hair that came to see this movie. It was a ridiculous number. But that
Right.
also made me kind of go, do I really want to watch this movie? That's like, there's not a single person with color in their hair coming in here. Um, yeah. So, but now that I've watched it,
Mhm.
I feel silly for not giving myself the chance to watch it because while there are moments like like all the movie things said that you drudge, like for me, part of the song, so I was drudging through them. I was like, all right, Hugh,
Right.
dude, I get it, dude. You are sad. This is morose. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
bad. I get it,
Jeez.
Hmm.
Yeah.
but don't say that sentence again, but he would, and that, so I get that sense of it, but at the same time,
Mhm.
when like Anne Hathaway's song or the end, when is it not Cosette, but when, what was her name? No, Fantine, when Fantine shows back
Mhm.
up and is standing over Jean Valjean, like I was Niagara Falls. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then of course the scene at the gates, like once they're at the like permanent revolution. I loved it. It's fantastic.
Right.
Well, up to that point when Fantine finally appeared to him at the end, that was finally the moment where he realized that he was able to fulfill what the bishop had told him, to go and make a good life for himself afterward. Like he was able to finally see that, everything that he had done something right.
Right.
Because the whole time he was trying to earn and embody the pardon that bishop had given him, the priest had given
Yeah.
him,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
he never felt worthy.
Right.
He never felt like he did enough um, to take care of it. And it was horrible because even with him doing, like, if you go back to when we first have Fontaine, she's in the workhouse, like, he wants to do good, but there's so many wicked people around him that are taking advantage, that by association, he did this to this girl because he didn't have a credible person working for him. And you have, like, all of these situations that he still feels responsible for.
Can we talk about that a little
Right.
bit more? Because
Yeah.
from my viewing, from what I saw, Jean Valjean never saw her get ejected. He heard, but he never saw her leave or get ejected because he was so distracted with Javert showing up that it didn't
Mhm.
feel like it was
Yeah, he
really
had.
his
I
fault.
thought he had
Well, remember, he
left.
told him to deal with it and be
Right. Yeah.
gentle
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be fair.
Right, but they weren't. They were the complete opposite.
Right.
But then he realized that even somebody in his under his stewardship was treated that way, even
Right.
after asking them to take it nice. So he felt personally responsible. There's a lot of personal responsibility, and I think that it definitely ties to the religious aspect of all of this and the Christian aspect of how things were in France at that time.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. Fantine's character, man, like that's the scene that I will not get out of my head. I thought
Mhm.
she was a great actress before I saw this movie, and now I went, oh shit, like she deserves whatever. Give her whatever role she wants. Just let her play whatever movie she wants. She's good, like
Mhm.
that good.
A lot
Oh
of
yeah.
young actors, like, childhood actors, they always get this type of a stigma about them. And
Mhm.
of course, Anne Hathaway, she's well known for The Princess Diaries. Um, and so you have, this individual that's doing this stuff. She just done a couple lackluster things. She did, like, Alice in Wonderland and stuff, where
Mhm.
I don't think it was the most um complimenting of films for her. And then she tried to do the Dark Knight Rises and stuff, which I think was okay, but I think she still had some of that stigma. But this really set her apart when it came to her acting roles. She could be seen for more than just doing
Right.
puffy light spirited stuff.
Well,
So
she had done
Mhm.
things like Love and Other Drugs and other various films. I think even before. Wait, was that 20? I think it was like 2010 that came out. She had. I still think she had done other things, but this definitely, obviously, she went. La La
the
said she
most
won the
critical for her.
Oscar for
Yeah.
it. Definitely
Mhm.
this put her permanently on the map. But um, I think we can get more from her like this. But then we get movies like The Witches, and
Mhm.
that did not need to be remade. But anyway, um,
I
Right.
didn't mind that one so much.
really,
I love the original, but it wasn't so bad for me. I like that one a little bit.
any other things you want to say about it? All the movie things. I know you said you had to push yourself through it. Did you find any of the music compelling at all, or I know you like
Oh
the Sacha
yeah.
Baron Cohen part, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to
That
see
whole
what.
sequence. Yeah, that whole sequence is great. I mean, most of Hugh Jackman's stuff was really great. I mean, I was really drawn in by his stuff, and of course, Anne Hathaway's um, performance is incredible. Um, yeah, it's just there were certain bits. I mean, it just felt really like there's a lot in it for me, and it's just hard for me to get through those like sung dialogue kind of type of musicals, But when it's like a big group number, I thought that was really great. I loved all of those when they had larger musical numbers going on. But
Like the bar sequence when they're
um,
singing about the flag, like
yeah,
yeah,
uh-huh,
that's
yeah,
some fun stuff.
those are great. And I can definitely appreciate like parts of it for sure. I just think for as a whole, it wasn't really working for me all the way. But
So here's a question then,
I'm
based on
I
that.
won't give it as a 5 though.
Okay, that's
So
fair. So based on that, I've had a thought about this because I don't know if you guys have
Mhm.
seen the other Les Mis, the one with Liam Neeson.
I have
No.
I
no.
think you guys should, just for the sake that it's a '90s period
Mhm.
piece, basically, with this exact story.
Right.
There's
Well,
some
wait, was Liam Neeson Javier?
no Jean Valjean.
Was it-
Here's Jean
Oh, he was.
Valjean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, they missed an opportunity there. Of course, this predated the Taken things. It's like I have one set
Right.
of
Yeah.
skills. You'll hunt who I will find you.
Or
Yeah.
no, he's Jean
Mhm.
Valjean, and then who's the guy that was in Interview with the Vampire that played
Tom
the
Cruise, Brad Pitt.
No, the one that played the creepy French vampire, the one that was underneath Antonio Banderas's character. I always
Oh,
forget his name.
Oh.
I'm just gonna
When you
look it
say
up.
creepy, I would have just said Tom Cruise again. So I'm glad you differentiated.
No, I'll just look it up. Why is the original film not coming up? That's weird. Odd. Anyway, here it is. Jeffrey Rush. Why did I? And that's not even who I was thinking of this, but it's Jeffrey
Oh,
Rush plays
Hector
Joe Bear,
Barbosa.
and then Fantine is played by Uma Thurman. Let's see.
Oh, interesting.
Who plays Cosette? I swear, Claire Danes plays Cosette. I knew that it was somebody.
And this is not a
Oh,
singing. This is
wow.
not a
No,
singing
this is
one, right?
100% just an adaptation of the novel, because the novel is not
Oh, gotcha.
a musical.
Okay.
The
Okay.
Broadway turned it into a musical, and then this was Broadway's
Yeah.
adaptation. So this is why this movie is weird. It's an adaptation
It is weird.
of a musical, which is an adaptation of a book.
That was
so it's two
adapted
times
of the
removed.
book.
Yeah. So as much as the
Mhm.
Liam Neeson movie is, it's okay. Like, I think it's worth a watch. I think you should watch
Right.
it because it helps tell the story in a much more cohesive way. Saying all that, what I was trying to say was, I think this would have been brilliant, not as a musical. If they had just made this movie and made it a 3-hour epic, holy shit, it would have been good. And I don't think it was bad,
Right.
but I think it would have just been that much better. So that's just my
I
opinion.
don't know. I think the musical numbers were strong in this. I think it would have lost something without. I get, like, if you did a translation to the book with these characters and cast, it would be different. But I think with the, like, you couldn't make it a non-musical from based off the musical. Is that what you're trying to say from it, or?
So you could either base the script on the movie that was made in 98 or just make a new script based on the novel. And then
Okay.
they could have done that with
Right.
this set of sets, because the set, like all the movie things said, holy crap, the production on this was wild.
Yeah, it's huge.
Some of those
Yeah.
shots, like the whole boat in the beginning, like that's just wow.
Yeah, that was
Um,
massive. Yeah.
And the digital work that they did worked for it because they didn't do too much of it. They did
Yeah,
it just for sweeping
right.
shots
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
things.
Uh-huh.
But had they just taken the same dialogue from this film, or like I said, the book, and done this kind of a sweeping story, and then maybe broke it up, maybe this could have been a miniseries, 3-parter. Maybe this could have been 2 novels or 2 big movies. I don't know. But I think
Right.
part of me kept thinking that the whole time. I was like,
The Les Mis universe. Even, let's do a whole universe.
no, what we could
You
do,
imagine?
what they could do,
Terrible.
and I'm surprised people haven't done this because technically anybody could do it because these are all technically under.
Right.
Why do I never remember the name of this thing? It's not fair
Creative
use,
Commons.
but in the yeah, there you go. That's what I was trying to think of. You could literally take all the classics and make one universe out of them, and nobody could stop
Yeah.
you.
No, totally.
Because
Right.
you could have the Count of
Common
Monte
sense
Cristo
normally
and
would.
Jean Valjean
Mhm.
teaming up against their prospective bad guys. It could be fun. Make it actiony. Hire The Rock.
There you go. Yep.
So I did the post about Last Action Hero recently about what movie would you go into, and people have loved that
Yeah.
one.
Movie universe.
But one of the clips from that movie that always stands out to me is when Schwarzenegger does Macbeth, and I absolutely adore that moment because that's what, as a kid, I was always like, if they just do this, I would
Or not
watch
to
it,
be.
right? I
Yeah.
would watch To Be or Not to Be,
Totally.
Not to Be, right?
Not
Great
to
stuff.
be.
I just, when I think of classics, I wish they would spice them up a little for the younger audience. So when they made Romeo and Juliet, when Baz Luhrmann made Romeo and Juliet, that's what he did. And I was like, dude, I can eat up some Romeo and Juliet for days if it's got guns and action and Leo DiCaprio. Like, give it to me. Anyway,
Mhm.
Yeah,
League
I
of
think they
Extraordinary,
tried to bring
yeah.
all those characters together. Yeah, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's pretty much like bringing them all together, the team
All
up.
those
And we
things
saw how
together.
that went.
Yeah, but that was. I was thinking about this today. That's an interesting thing you bring up because
That could have been really great.
it could have been. And whenever I think about bad
Yeah.
acting, I always think about it. I'm like, wait a minute. The director said cut. Why? Ask them to do it again. Why are you? The bad acting happens because somebody left that alone and edited it into a film instead of asking the actor to
That's
do
the
it again.
thing. Like, yeah, like, and they had
If they
multiple
can, if they
takes
can,
to
like,
choose from. You know what I mean? Like, and that was the take that they chose.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
I know
know.
there are 20 other
We
takes.
should
Why
wonder how
that
the other
one?
bad takes were.
No,
Come
I
on.
agreed, and I thought about that too. That's definitely a fair point. But I still think that I'm like, wait a minute, I saw that too, and I saw it. How did you not see this bad take?
Like
I
a
don't
lot
know.
of takes,
That's
like
just me.
they'll
It's
take a
unfair,
whole day
but
to do a take of something, and then they've got this pool of things. At some point, either the director got so tired of looking at the bad takes and said, "We'll just pick one randomly," or because like that's
Yeah.
how it feels like in that movie
Well,
sometimes.
no, totally.
Or,
I mean,
or that was
yeah,
the
there.
least of the bad ones, which means I want the blooper reel for that because
Oh
it's
man,
like you
yeah.
oh you think this film was bad? Look what it could have been.
Yeah. Well, I guess Sean Connery had a lot of issues on that film, and I guess there was a lot of like other problems on the set too. So I think they were all just trying to get it done,
Well,
And
that
so
movie
they're all
made
just
him quit
phoning him in.
acting.
Wait,
Like,
Yeah,
didn't he
that was like,
retire after this
yeah,
one?
he was like, "I'll
yeah,
never act
pretty
again.
much.
You guys suck."
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah. It's like thanks.
finally somebody killed Bond. That's just how
Yeah.
it goes.
Yeah. But I also heard that sometimes he was a nightmare on set, so like maybe there's a benefit to that. I don't know.
Any
Like a
world
prima donna
renowned
sometimes.
actor has got to be a
Yeah.
diva,
Yeah. Hard not to. Um,
unless you're Keanu Reeves.
yeah, but it's weird. I think he's going like off the deep end a little, and that's maybe part of why he doesn't sound the same as he did even 5 years ago. He's sounding different and acting a little different
Yeah.
in his interviews. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've noticed that, but
Yeah. Well,
something's
he's probably
up.
malnourished because he gives all his money to his crew, buying people motorcycles so they can go on rides.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the dude's generous, but like, people have seen him like sitting on this on like a curb, like eating like a lunch or something. Like, did anybody
Yeah,
think
I
that
know.
maybe he's like spent all of his money on everybody else and he's not like taking care of himself?
Oh,
He's always skinny.
we should start a GoFundMe for
For
Keanu.
Keanu.
Let's do it.
GoFundMe Keanu for a sandwich. We just need
The
you to eat a
real
sandwich.
study.
Mm.
The real study.
Yeah, I mean,
We're gonna
GoFundMe
do
for
this for
Keanu.
Keanu. We're gonna do it
Yeah.
for him. Have
Where
you
were we
guys
going?
seen or read or know the story of Count of Monte Cristo?
yes.
No,
No.
I've
Okay.
only seen the movie.
So you have seen the movie. So you do know the story
Yeah,
enough.
seen the movie. Yes.
Do you
Brian
feel
wasn't
like a
listening.
lot of the classics kind of have these like revengey plots and a lot of these dealing with the power
Oh.
structure
Mhm.
because they
All of-
all kind of
listen-
have
listen,
this feel that they all feel like classics.
There are
Mhm.
so many stories that are derived from classic literature. It's not even funny. It is not even funny.
Well, they say
was
out
it-
there there's really only like 7 stories,
Right.
that are actually told. They're just like thrown with different paint on them.
This is why people get
So-
mad at Marvel because they tell the hero's tale like a lot of times.
I mean, there's a reason the hero's
Wonder
tale
why.
is like stands the test of time, though.
It's one of the
so,
better versions of
like,
stories.
Yeah, I mean,
This is
Yeah, but at
always
least they're playing their movies based off of the literature that they wrote. That's based off the literature that other people wrote.
right.
rather
So-
than
Sure.
a play based on a book based on a no. I'm sorry. Yeah, this is a confusing
On a
one.
musical,
It's an
on a
interesting one for that reason. But
Commercial. Yeah.
it's a musical based on a commercial that was based on a 1998 film, but the musical was actually set in 1980, so there was time travel involved. But it's okay
Right.
because it's all based on the book from 1862. I almost said
Exactly.
1962. Why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
Yeah, it was such a fun. And literally, they just came up with it because they all were singing a hot tub and they just got transported to that time.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So big bright idea. We need to do our own version of Les Mis, but we need to do like they did with Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. It needs to be like Les Mis versus and like blend the French Revolution and singing with some other property. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We could remake it. We could make $1 million, or it could flop like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Or all Blind Biggie says aliens. We could do.
Ooh, Les Mis meets the versus.
Well, what we
Aliens.
could do
Aliens.
is we could do one where Jean Valjean is on the run. He's pardoned from the bishop. He goes to this house of this woman who was always fond of him when he was younger, and she traps him and breaks his legs. Oh, that would be Les Misery.
Les Misery. Oh, here we go.
That was freaking awesome, and great on the fly.
Uh-huh.
That being said, did you guys know that Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies is actually just Pride and Prejudice, but with zombies? Like, I asked a
Yes.
Pride and Prejudice
Yeah.
fan, and they were like, "Oh no, it's exact." I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's
Yeah,
what
they're
I'd want."
literally talking about courtship and relationships, and then
Yeah, and
zombies
then
show up. and
zombies
kill
show
them.
Right. So
They go
this,
right
I
back to
want
dialogue.
the aliens to just be the French army. Like that's all I need. Like I don't need anything changed otherwise. Just make this movie, but the French army and Javert
Yeah.
are all aliens, so they're being invaded by
Now,
aliens.
here's what I
Oh,
want.
Okay.
Here's what I want because we're talking about like these remakes and stuff like that. A while ago, I bought the original Star Wars trilogy written in Shakespeare,
Oh yeah.
and they
Oh,
need to
nice.
do a adaptation of Shakespearean Star Wars.
Like a movie version of that book.
Yes.
Right. That'd be good.
Yes.
It could be good.
Yes.
So this is another one I was thinking of because the movie Singing in the Rain made me think of it. And since this movie did kind of weirdness too. What might be your favorite movie in a movie? One that doesn't really exist, but it's the movie in the movie. Because like Last Action Hero is the name of the movie, but the movie is really Jack Slater 6, right? That's the name of the movie.
Jack Slater 6.
Right. So like I don't know, just a thought. It occurred to me there's so many movies in movies that don't really exist, or even songs. Like that's one I've heard of before. What songs? But so just think on it. You don't have to answer.
Right.
We do have a pre-review, so why don't we wrap up Les Mis, give our reviews, and then do the pre-review, and then we can discuss Tick Tick Boom.
Boom.
Because we have gotten to aliens fighting in the French Revolution. I think we're ready to move on.
Yeah, I think we. Oh, we didn't rate this one.
We do have to. So why don't we start with you? All the movie things.
All right, I'm gonna give this one a 6.5.
6.5. All right.
Yeah, 12-year-old me wouldn't be interested in this either. So
something about a pole, 10 feet, tent.
Yeah.
Something like that. Mr. Marvelite.
8 for me. I really like this film. You definitely had star quality, even though Russell Crowe I think is on the decline of things. And it was not his most becoming part, but I think I think the rest of the actors did a fantastic job with their singing and everything else. And even when like I think it was the Oscars, they actually did one of the songs from Les Mis.
They did. Yeah.
And it was just like at the point where I had seen the film and I was excited that they were in the Oscars, when they went to do their part and Russell Crowe's up there singing, it was almost like comical at that point. Like I was just like, you go, Russell, you go, you do it. So like you kind of get used to it. It's like one of those things where like the movie is good, but then at some point you're just like, oh, here he goes, here he goes, here he goes.
Look, he's gonna give it his best.
Give it your
like
all.
Somebody who's never watched it, like if like not knowing that you may not have seen it, I would have loved to have been sitting next to you, and I probably would have been the guy looking over and wanting to see your reaction when he opens his mouth and bellows those sweet pipes.
Yeah.
And so yeah, definitely 8 for me. As a 12-year-old, I probably still would have watched this and liked this. Mind you, if we're talking about like if I would have known about like Wolverine and stuff, I would have gone just to watch it for Hugh Jackman's sake at that point. So like that was an appealing thing, and then just seeing him be that strong guy that's lifting up the mast and he's picking up a horse cart and doing all those things, and seeing him as being strong but doing all those things is very compelling. And I mean the story is very compelling in that. Mind you, some of the themes were a little bit questionable for maybe a 12-year-old to be watching, but I would have loved it.
Pretty heavy violence for a PG-13 film.
Yeah, and it's also got a lot of sexual like explanation.
Oh yeah,
right.
The storyline is very sexual with the fact that Fontaine is basically pulled into prostitution.
Yeah, that was hard to watch. That whole
and
I mean,
even
not even that, but just like her getting her teeth pulled and like her hair getting like
just
selling pieces of her. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I tried to explain to my wife. I was like, she was selling pieces of herself, and she's like her arms. I'm like, no, but like whatever, selling yourself in a variety of ways.
Yeah.
Because even a part of her soul was sold when she sold herself.
I think the most emotional part for me in that scene was when they were like, they were go to take her teeth, and she's like, just the back ones, and they said, well, you get 2 for twice. You get for 2,
but like made her do it, like
she had no choice at that point. They took since they already had her in that position, they just took what they wanted, and that was I think that was what impacted me the most of that scene, because it's like it was visceral how they treated her, even for being a musical.
Yeah. So. No, and that scene also shows the disparity between the rich and the poor, and that guy comes along and abuses her essentially in his room. She fights back, the way she should, and now all of a sudden Javert is like, oh, you're a whore. You have to go to jail because that guy said you did something. Like, I was like, man, I wanted to slap you.
But like also the fact that what a mother would, what extent a mother would go to take care of her daughter, and people think that she was horrible because she had her daughter off somewhere else. The circumstances were terrible at that. It's like being a parent. I would. There is nothing that would be sacred for me to be able to take care of my child.
Agreed. Agreed. I will stop eating before my child stops eating. That's as simple as that. My review on this, or my rating, I should say, because we've already done some review, is actually going to be a 9. I think that this stands up as probably one of the best made musicals ever made, even though it's not for me in the musical sense. Once I did get through the whole story, I was so moved by the entire production that I get it. I don't know if I'll ever watch it ever again,
Right.
but I get it and I understand it, and so yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9. So,
Nice.
yeah. That being said, we do have a pre-review from Sean, and we're gonna head right into that right now.
How's it going, Real Study viewers? I'm Sean, and I'm finally back with another pre-review. I know I've taken the past few weeks off, but there's literally nothing extravagant coming out, nothing groundbreaking right now. And it's still an early part of the year, but I couldn't let another week go by without talking about the 2 movies that we have releasing nationwide this week in theaters. This week we have Moonfall starring Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley. This looks like such a fun sci-fi thriller, adventure, comedy even. It looks wonderful, over the top. Haven't seen anything this crazy since, 2012? But this looks like so much fun. I can't wait to watch this one. And also this week, we have Jackass Forever. Now, these guys have been with us for like 25 plus years, I think, of my life. I've watched some iteration of this group of people. They have been through so many changes, and I cannot wait to see what this movie is like. I've been a huge fan of slapstick comedy, and these guys take it to a whole new level. You know this. So now that they're older, I cannot wait to see what they do, what they're willing to do for their entertainment, and it's just going to be a great time. I know it's not much, but that's all I got this week, and hopefully when things pick up, we will have plenty more movies and releases. I'll see y'all next week.
That was definitely a short pre-review, but hey, we are back, and Moonfall, that does look interesting. We'll see whether it's ridiculous or takes itself seriously enough. It's one of those movies that you gotta like. Yeah, with him though, there are movies he's made that are so good, and then there are movies he's made that are just awful. Independence Day. Anybody can say that that's a classic. It's fun. It's great. And then you watch. Although I don't think he directed the sequel, but the sequel was. It hurt me. It's one of those movies where I think it's better if you literally turn the sound off. You can watch the movie because the visuals are good and then, like, the aliens are cool, but the dialogue is the worst. That being said,
A movie that also set up for a sequel that's probably never going to happen.
fair. 2012, I thought was terrible because Blind Biggie just asked that. I hate that movie.
Woody Harrelson was the best part of it.
Exactly. I think we're all going to agree about Roland Emmerich. So for me, like White House Down was actually one of his better films because he knew not to take himself too seriously with that film, and it was fun and funny. So when he can do that, like Independence Day is funny. There are moments of just fun and funny, even though there's tragedy. It works for me. But as soon as that dude tries to take himself too seriously, it falls to pieces. So we'll see. It really depends on how
I have to
the
agree
time
with
did.
Blind Biggie, though. I did like it The Day After Tomorrow. I thought that was a good film. Was that Emmerich?
I don't know if that was Emmerich. Let me look him up while we talk. So we are going to talk
probably.
about Tick, Tick, Boom. Would either of you guys like to introduce the film while I look up Roland Emmerich?
I guess it's a no. No.
I've
No, it is
seen
Roland
that.
Emmerich.
It is Roland Emmerich. Okay.
He was a writer and director. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So he makes some good movies and some bad movies. All right. Tick, Tick, Boom.
Wasn't perfect.
Let's talk about Tick, Tick, Boom. And this is a Netflix exclusive, which they are hit and miss with their movies, as we've already discussed on this show before. Starring Andrew Garfield as Jonathan Larson, who was the man who wrote Rent, the famous Broadway musical, which basically changed Broadway forever. I don't think we'd have Hamilton without Rent, period. and it's basically his story about trying to become a successful musical theater writer. Um, so, oh yeah, directed by Lin Manuel Miranda. How could I forget that? So it's kind of it's
His
interesting that Lin
first
is
time
doing this film.
directing.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
yeah, so um, I knew everybody was talking about this movie. I literally walked into this movie blind. I did not know what this movie was. I saw the title, I saw Andrew Garfield, I saw a piano, and I went intrigued enough. Turned it on and just got to walk right through the story with no anticipation of what it was for. And wow, like what a
Yeah.
fun and interesting film. What a great cast. Um, Such a kind of a snapshot of an era that I lived through. Even though it wasn't on the East Coast and I wasn't a big musical fan, it encapsulated that era very very well. And you can tell Lynn had a lot to do with the music, even though Jonathan himself obviously wrote this music because it was for his musical. So there's my introduction. I really, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. Just not knowing what it was, I didn't have anticipation, so I'm glad it was higher than not knowing. All the movie things. What do you think about Tick Tick Boom?
Oh yeah, loved it. And I I felt like uh, Andrew Garfield's like on fire in 2021. I mean, he had a really great year. Um, I think he's gonna be. We're gonna see him get nominated for this. This film will get a few nominations. I mean, it already has for Golden Globes, but and other various awards. But I think we'll see some Oscar nominations for this film. Um, yeah, and like his performance was just. I mean, it's really all on him. And there's some great set pieces. Like it's almost like there's like this fantasy element in a way, like especially with like that diner scene, the whole diner like opens up
Oh
and turns
yeah.
into like a platform, like the stage, like yeah, just like
Well,
yeah,
and
there's just
there were
some
tons of
fun different
Broadway
elements
people
in
in
it.
that
Like
scene. Like tons of
oh
Broadway
yeah,
people in that scene.
there's some Hamilton folks in there for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Like
Though,
he
so
brought a lot of folks from Hamilton in there.
I think almost everybody in that scene was from a previous Broadway musical. I'm
Yeah,
almost certain of that. Anyway, go ahead.
right. Yeah. Well, and then we got Stephen Sondheim in there. Not the Stephen Sondheim, but Bradley Whitford playing Stephen Sondheim, which is great because he was very influential for that character for Larson. Um, and it's just a great story of like for anyone that's like a creative and trying to do something. It's just like you feel like there's got to be an end. Like I've put all my. You really see like the struggle that he has. Like he finally gets something, and it's like and it doesn't go the way he was hoping. And that scene where that agent's telling him like, well, it's heartbreaking because it's like you get up and you do the next one, and then you do the next one, and you just do, and you just keep slogging through this life because you love it, and yeah, I just really loved it. Like the songs are great. I mean, there's still some that I'll like play YouTube on just play on YouTube and listen to. Especially like that relationship one was really great and fun
Oh yeah.
between
So
the
good. Or
yeah.
even the
So
one that they did on the fly in the living room, where the guy that they
yeah,
didn't know was there,
This is
and
the life.
yeah,
yeah,
Or-
that was
uh-huh,
so great.
yeah,
Such a
uh-huh,
great scene.
yeah, just yeah, yeah, loved it.
Mr. Marvelite.
Well, this film I wasn't aware of it coming until I saw a preview. I think it was either the end of 2020 or right at the beginning of 2021 where they
Mhm.
just had Andrew Garfield singing "This Is the Life," and
Yeah.
I didn't know much about that other than it was about the creator of Rent, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to get too in depth of what was going on with it. But I remember as soon as I saw the trailer for it and listened to Andrew Garfield singing, I'm like, I'm going to definitely watch this. I have no idea what this is going to end up being, but
Yeah.
it definitely sounds interesting. And um, so as soon as it came out on Netflix, of course, I watched it. And there was a lot of like, I mean, if you're on TikTok, you saw, you know,
Yeah.
people either doing the audio or you saw bits of the film or whatever. It was
Mhm.
just great. And then of course Andrew Garfield is one of those he's one of those type of actors that we don't get very often in this generation anymore, where they're very much into the method. They're very much into embodying the character. I believe he actually learned how to play the piano and wanted to make sure he was able to play some of these pieces. And so like that's him singing, that's whatever. And it's funny because
Yeah.
Lin Manuel Miranda, there are recordings of him actually doing these parts, whether it was because he did Tick Tick Boom, I think, on Broadway or off Broadway or whatever, or if it was just for preparation for the movie, but and they're good. And I see people comparing Andrew Garfield to Lin Manuel Miranda, which, let's face it, that's not fair. Because this is what Andrew Garfield was focused on doing. Lin Manuel
His
Lin
name
Manuel
does that.
Miranda is a he's a versatile Broadway actor, singer, director, writer, and so you've got this, you know, him doing this one piece, which he could do anything he wants to. Andrew took the time to really kind of embody Jonathan Larson, which I think it really pays off well.
Yeah.
From the impromptu, set design pieces where you have the diner opening up like all the movie things said. The I could get used to this, the where he's in the apartment with his friend and former roommate, like just the way all of that kind of goes in, like you can just see all of the real Broadway elements just kind of come through. This is more of Broadway off Broadway than even producers could do, and that was more satire to Broadway.
Yeah.
This is just like if real life was Broadway, this is what it would be like.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that's what
And
I was
that's
trying
what
to
was
say.
really neat about
Yeah.
it, because
Uh-huh.
I feel like every person who wants to, win a Tony or wants to get all, get into that type of life, of the arts and doing, theater, that's the mentality that they go through. I bet there's a lot of people that are like theater kids out there that's how they live their lives through. They just imagine, musical numbers for, everyday events. And I could see that. Like we were in Jonathan Larson's mind. And I think that was fantastic.
Well, I
Yeah.
love that the idea. See, I've always been the person that would just. I'm not a theater person. I cannot sing. I've learned some music, but I have no talent with it. But yet, I still felt compelled my whole life to make up little ditties, if you will. And I think a lot of people do. And Jonathan took that and just ran with it. And I think that's fantastic that he would write songs about everyday items just to see if he could, and
Yeah. Yeah. That
just
was
to
interesting.
practice, to flex, if you will. And
Yeah.
that's brilliant. Like, he took his craft so seriously, it enveloped every part of his life, including his snacks and breakfast. Like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, I guess we can too as TikTok creators. We can just film everything we ever do. But part of me
Right.
understands, being a person who creates and looks for an audience and doesn't always find that audience. I think I can relate to him to a degree. Obviously, I'm not a Broadway, person on that level, but I do understand what it means to do something and go, wow, that went really well. And then they're like, yeah, move on to the next thing. It feels like that on TikTok almost every day. Like, that's like I did well with that video.
Right.
Do another one. Same with this show. We could have a good show, but next show is just as important. So we've got our next show to worry about. And that's
Yeah.
performance.
Yep.
That's doing these things kind of across the board, putting yourself out there and doing any kind of producing of any kind, whether you're producing
Yeah.
art or theater or film or whatever
TikTok.
it is, or podcast.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
So I got it. I felt like I understood, and I think it's such a great story because it's uplifting. But then, of course, it's absolutely heartbreaking because we all know, unfortunately,
Yeah.
how it ended before
Yeah.
we even started. And it's just hard to know that people like that got their shot, but could have done so much more.
Yeah.
Imagine what we would have had with 20 more years of Jonathan on Broadway. And it just would have been. I don't know if Lynn would have had his shot had Jonathan still been there. In a weird way, I don't mean that in disrespectful.
Unless Jonathan would have been like a mentor for Lynn. I really
Right.
think that,
fair, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. But at the same time, that's just. I think Lynn had to think about these things while he was making this movie. He's making.
also
a
probably had to
movie.
think about what he struggled with, like what he went through,
Right.
and imagine
Oh,
that he
yeah.
got to where he was, and then all of a sudden his life was cut short. That had to have like really like embodied for him, like
Oh yeah.
what Jonathan was going through. So
No, agreed.
I'm sure in a way too, he did this as a love letter to Larson and just the the idea of living that life, and like grinding
Mhm.
away, and like he's been there, himself. So
I want to
um,
see
yeah,
the mixtape movie. So when they make the Hamilton mixtape movie, I'm hoping that event because in 20 years, Lynn will be huge or whatever, and then somebody's going to make a movie about him. And I want that whole scenario where they made the Hamilton mixtape to find its way into the film and all the different practices and rehearsals they had to go through to get those songs built. Because that was
yeah,
Lynn's struggle,
man.
the same way that Jonathan's
Hmm.
struggle was for literally this story. So I can see the actual like matchup there in a really neat way. I almost
Hmm.
feel like I could feel Lynn in this movie just because he's so
Oh
Broadway.
yeah, no, totally.
Um, like he was there, but he's not on screen once, but his presence is. So I don't know.
Hmm.
That's just me. But
Hmm. I agree. Yeah, it felt like there was Lin Manuel flavor in it for sure.
I think the majority of the songs were Jonathan Larson though, because they were pulled straight from his play or from his
Right.
piece,
Hmm.
which makes me wonder how much Lynn did to each piece or if he had any influence on any of the pieces. I don't know. I don't know the answer to
Hmm.
this, but it does make me
Right.
wonder um, whether it was just him trying to say, look, everybody should know who this is and what this story was, or if he, I don't know. I want to know more. I think I'm going to try to figure
Right.
out how to get this movie so I can look at the behind the scenes because Netflix doesn't have that. They don't do the special
Yeah.
features, which I wish they would. Come on,
Hmm.
guys, release your movie with some special features so we can watch them. Come on, Netflix, get on it. I don't know why all the movie things, but you went completely snow, but you're back. Okay, you're back.
Oh,
It happens.
I didn't go milk. I went
No,
snow,
you went snow, no milk.
And no milk. Okay.
Yeah, that's just berries and cream.
Let's see here. I'm going to pull down here to the details. I noticed a lot of people in the chat were talking about all the different things that Andrew had to do to get good with this part, and there were a lot of things
Right.
they were listing, um, which is ridiculous what actors will go through in order to embody a person, and it's got to be hard to embody a person, either a beloved person such as Jonathan, or somebody
Hmm.
that none of us know, but we like because most people don't know who Jonathan Larson is off the. If you said that name, they don't know who that is. If you said the creator of Rent, of course they might know that is, but then they'd still have to know what Rent was or care in order
Yeah.
to know. And yet Andrew creates a personality of a person that is memorable, even if he was maybe larger than Jonathan was in life, because I know actors have to kind of make it a little larger in performance
Well, I
sometimes.
also like how when they started this off, they even said this is based off of Jonathan's work about himself, and as it is as true as Jonathan made it to be true.
That's a fair
And
good
so it's
point.
kind of like the idea that he could have elaborated on himself during for his own story.
Hmm.
No,
So
that's a fair point. It's always interesting to hear. It's autobiographical in that sense, which means that even the negative parts are being kind of washed over
Right.
because we don't all paint ourselves in such a negative light. Actually, we don't generally do that at all. It's not our style as humans. Um, but it always makes me wonder. That always those kinds of things, these kinds of true stories, make me wonder how much of it has been painted over, how much of it was fancy.
Filtered. Hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know they're getting better. Movies are getting better and better every year. We get a little closer to real, a little closer to stopping with the BS Hollywood tropes. But even this movie
do we?
has some. Yeah, no, we do. We do. I promise we do.
I sometimes feel
Slowly.
like we don't.
No, there are other movies that just run with it. That's called Fast and the Furious. And I think we'll mention that series on every one of our shows ever. I think that has to happen.
It's all about family.
It's all about
Hmm.
family. Now I want Marley to be here. We're missing our TikTok family now. I never can tell if he's being sarcastic about Fast and the Furious.
I think he's I think he's genuine
You think he
about it. Like,
loves Fast and the Furious?
oh yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Because his taste otherwise tells me that would not be. But I guess your taste otherwise tells me you wouldn't normally be into
Yeah.
Fast and the Furious. So that
Like
says
Fast
something.
and Furious is a guilty pleasure that
It's fair.
I love. Sans Tokyo Drift, of course.
I
We
watched
don't
the
talk
Best
about
episode.
one.
Tokyo Drift.
I agree with you, Mr.
Stop
Marmalade.
it! You're not. You
Nope.
don't think it's the best
I do.
one.
It's my
You're
favorite
full
one.
of it.
It is
Oh,
100% my favorite one.
please.
100%. It really, truly is. I'm genuinely not just trying to josh you.
No, you're
I'm not
Fast
trying to play
Five
it.
was my favorite Fast and Furious one.
that one's good.
I felt like after that it just became a little bit tropey.
After that, it became soapy. But um, I rewatched the episode where we talked about watching Furious or Fast 9, which was interesting that we had. And the way I talked about how I was going to give it a chance versus how I actually approached that film when we talked about it last week, stark
Oh, yeah.
difference. Stark difference. And I'm kind of like, wait a
Hmm.
minute. Maybe I let that movie take me away a little too fast, and I should have given it a better chance. But at the same time, I really tried.
Interesting.
I try all
Right.
the time. So back to Tick Tick Boom. Did anybody else stand out to you as just like their performances at all? I mean, I know you mentioned Bradley Whitford, who when I saw him, I was like, oh, what? Okay,
Yeah, he
dude,
did.
show up wherever you want, man. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, he did really great as Sondheim. I mean, down to like how his face is. He has like this very specific way. Like I don't know if Sondheim had suffered a stroke or whatnot, but
Hmm.
he definitely physically embodied Sondheim, very much. And Vanessa Hudgens was great. And it was nice seeing Judith Light pop up in there. We all know her from growing up with her with growing pains. So
Right? Yeah, she hasn't been in much
Yeah,
She
that
just
I've
irritated
seen.
me though. But I think it was intentional.
yeah, yeah. I mean, she's there to kind of like you know bring some reality to Larson, and but yeah, that was the tough thing to watch.
No, that was
The
one of the
character
harder parts to watch.
Michael by Robin De Jesus,
Mhm.
just that roommate and friend, like
Yeah,
having him as the compelling, like you could see he was a bit of the inspiration for what Jonathan would then later on, create Brent based off of the struggle there.
mhm.
And it was just that kind of, because I mean you see the AIDS epidemic is kind of like rife with it, because you also had that other friend, I think it was
Mhm.
Ira, at the diner.
The one
Like
they
they
focused on just to tell about the relationship and the HIV positive. There wasn't
right,
much
and
else about the character.
and he seemed like he was going to be okay, and then he wasn't. It was either Ira or Freddie. I can't remember which
I
one.
think it was Freddie. I think you were right with
Yeah,
Freddie.
so Freddie. I mean, you just had these two individuals that really struggled, in different avenues when it came to, where they were with, having AIDS and whatnot. I mean, just seeing how Jonathan was ready to give up, and his friend wouldn't let him give up, and just that communication where he was so mad
Mhm.
at him, but then at the same time, Jonathan's like, we'll do whatever we can. Like he was there for his
Right.
friend, and at the same time, his friend's like, I'm not going to let you waste your talent to go do something normal, and
Mhm.
just they were both concerned about each other, and seeing that was just like that was probably the most impactful. Even his relationship with Susan, like I feel
Right.
like
Yeah.
she was an
Mhm.
avenue for some good music, but other than that, it was, this idea that, Jonathan wasn't going to give up on what he wanted to do, and it didn't involve
Yeah.
Right.
her.
She was either going to
And
join him or not.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, let's face it, like I will say, like in a relationship, when you're sitting there thinking, because I was sitting there thinking at this point, like knowing what I know as a married man, like when she asked his opinion, I was like, just tell her don't do it. Just tell her to
Mhm.
stay with you.
Right.
But that wasn't his mentality, because he wasn't
Mhm.
concerned about her.
Right. He didn't care whether
And
she
he
stayed or went.
loved the idea of her, but need he did not want that in his life, really. And it was just, that was an excuse to push her away. And that kind of, that whole relationship with, was more of what he thought of as a distraction. And I think that was
Mhm.
part of the problem.
But what's
Yeah.
interesting, what's really interesting though, and this would be true for anybody, is that without her there, he wouldn't have some of those songs. Without her there,
Right.
so like he needed to have enough of a relationship with her to create material, which almost if I were her, I'd be like, am I like part of your props? Like, are you using me to create these
Or
things?
Well,
like when he was
even in
hugging
that
her, and
song,
Yeah,
she's
he
like,
does say that. I
"You're
know,
thinking
but
of
it
a
would definitely
song
make
or
me
a
feel
movie."
that way.
exactly. Yeah, you're thinking of a song right now, aren't
Right.
you? Like, yeah, like, and like that was a whole aspect I love that both of you touched on, was like that that's important in the film, was like it takes a village to like all of those people are like the support system around him in order to keep doing what he's doing, and that's true with any. I mean, I guarantee like Lin Manuel Miranda himself has like his support team.
Oh yeah, and like
Supportive
the
family,
original
friends, and
cast
loved
from
ones.
Hamilton were all his friends
Yeah,
that came
but
on to
that's
do
what I'm
like
saying. Like
he like they each became a
throughout
crux
his
in his wheel.
yeah, throughout
Yeah.
his life, he's had those people too. It's like any filmmaker, anyone who's has like drive, like and just like focus to create something. There are those, for better or worse, those people they have to lean on to keep going. So I love that they showed him like all those people.
Right.
Susan, his best friend, um, all those people were part of that.
Going back to what Mr. Marvelite said about him and Michael when he was telling him, he had to keep persevere. He had to do this regardless. I loved
Mhm.
that he was like, "Look, dude, I'm an okay actor. I'm okay. You
Right.
are a genius." Like he like really was like, "Dude, look, I get there's a lot of actors in this town, a lot of people in this town, but trust me, I've been around with you. I know better than what you're trying to tell me." Um, because that self doubt will kill any artist
Mhm.
overnight. You can just walk away from it all in an instant. And how many artists have walked away from it all because they didn't have that support system that you guys were talking about?
Yeah.
I would
Mhm.
just, I don't know. So much art has probably been lost because of it, or because of parents saying you don't need to be an artist or some
Right.
other
Get a real
bullshit.
job.
Yeah, no.
Mhm.
If you have no children or obligations, do whatever the hell makes you happy, and if you're eating and you're staying healthy, that's all that matters.
Mhm.
Otherwise, do what's making you happy, and if it's not enough money to make your parents happy, who gives a shit? Like honestly,
And
Right.
if you're young enough to where you haven't like you've gone too deep into, I would just say also don't get in debt.
don't
You know,
spend a dime you don't
don't
have.
buy a car. Do not buy
Right.
a car on
Don't get a
credit. Like
credit card
don't
unless
do
you
that
have to.
because it's like this. It's like just coming from like an older guy. I would just say having debt will prevent you from learning to doing what you want to do in your future.
Mhm.
It's
Wisdom from
easier
the
for people
real study.
to have debt, yeah,
Yeah.
to pursue your dreams.
It
Old
is
guys with beards.
right.
Just think of credit like weights, and the more weights you put on yourself, the closer to the ground you're going to stay.
Yeah, but credit's also like you're walking in sand too. So like it looks like a nice smooth sail, and then you get into a beach situation. Now you're picking up weights. It can get really bad. We are
Yeah.
not here to tell you to do great in life, although we should commend you all and hope that you do great in life. We are here to talk about movies, and while this movie does give us a lot of this, and it is interesting to that we would like automatically go there thinking about Jonathan because he did do this, and now we're sitting here going, wait a minute. It's just I don't know. It's interesting that there's a sociological aspect to our show and to movie reviews in general, and I love it. And I've been trying to find more ways to bring it up and talk about the way that we engage with movies as part of this because it's as huge a part to this to me as the films themselves. The way that we watch them and talk to each other about them, and even the stuff on TikTok, the toxicity of the ridiculousness of fans of film.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
we're talking about movies,
yeah,
right?
and just
show
and
is
like and like some of the dumb stuff people pick, like this is a bad example, but like the Halo trailers came out, and people are being very nitpicky about why does Cortana look different? She's supposed to be blue, blah blah blah. I'm like, this is what we're talking about. Like, it's come on, like, yeah. But that's just a very small example. But the toxicity stuff gets really
and like
insane.
here's the thing,
It
like
does.
people can criticize like that kind of stuff. They
Right.
can say,
Uh huh.
I would prefer this to be blue, like the thing.
Sure.
Right.
But like I'm gonna go there. Like there's a
Oh yeah,
creator,
yeah.
a
I know
mutual
what you're
mind,
talking about.
who
Hmm.
was criticizing the CGI in X-Men Origins
Yeah.
Wolverine, especially when he's in the bathroom, the closing. I'm not saying that the scene wasn't cool for the concept that they wanted, but it was Who Framed
It's
Roger
bad.
Rabbit bad. Like
It was bad.
it was
It's like,
It was bad.
they
it
could have
looks
drawn
just
it
We
better.
all
no,
know it was
it
bad.
And
totally.
people
Yeah,
were
yeah,
giving death threats. There's a mutual of mine who has been off of TikTok for
yeah.
4 days because they've received death threats for that. And it's ridiculous that we would be so upset. You can have differing opinions. It's okay.
And not only
Like
can we have different opinions, but we can have a discourse about them. There have been some instances where one of my mutuals um, talked about a movie and had some negative things to say about the movie. And as people have seen on this show, the nuance runs deep because we can hate a movie, like not really enjoy it at all, and still rate it high because we understand what the film is.
Oh yeah.
And there's a huge difference between that and just being like everything in the phase 4 is meh, meh, meh. And you guys know exactly what I'm talking about there
Okay.
too.
Oh,
let me give you a personal experience because this is
I
something
should
that
say
happened.
it's just anyway, go ahead.
So personal experience. So a video I did yesterday on TikTok, it's gotten like I think it's over at least 13,000 views, and people are just tearing me apart in the comments because I said the scene where Tony tells Peter that if he's nothing without the suit,
Right.
he
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
deserve
yeah.
the suit, or like that's hypocritical because he's not Iron Man. The suit makes him Iron Man. And I know there was Iron Man 3. Everybody's like, tell me you've not watched the MCU without telling me you've not watched the MCU. Or
I knew
go
people
back
were
and
going to
watch
come after
Iron
you
Man,
for
you
that.
dummy.
I
Like, people
knew
call
it.
me dummy. And I'm like sitting there like, I know that. But coming from a 15, 16-year-old's perspective, where a guy who just
Right. The
exited
hypocrisy is deep.
a
Yeah.
repulsor
A badass
powered
suit.
iron suit
Right.
is going to
He
say
could
if you're
fly it
nothing
from
with-
India while he's
Peter
dealing
still
with
has
a
superpowers
anyway.
and super senses,
Exactly.
but Tony's got money. Like
Okay,
that
so he
money's
went to
not gonna-
Walmart and was able to break
Take
into a
Tony's
compound
money
nobody
away.
expected
Yes,
him to break into in the
but he
first
left-
place.
But he
Anyway.
did that from Tennessee to Florida.
Right. Right.
How much prep time did he have? Like he at least had one night in a hotel
Yeah,
room.
he could have. He had
Peter
time.
decided to just grab his old suit and go after Vulture,
Right.
and
You're
pull the
right,
building
Marvel,
off
and
it.
it's not comparable.
But it's
and
like,
sure,
but it's like I'm okay if people have different opinions. Like I've even gone in the comics saying, "Listen, I know what happened in Iron Man 3, but Peter doesn't."
right.
You know, and it's
But they
like,
don't. But people that are talking about these movies on TikTok are not looking for nuance. They're looking to tell you
Oh,
how they
no,
felt about that
no.
movie, and they wrap their personality around it. And damn it, you know what I think is interesting. When I was watching that video of yours for that scene, what actually crossed my mind, which is what I thought you were going to mention, was in what way did they figure out how to get down to a store and buy a shirt with both of them in suit without revealing Peter Parker's identity? This would be tricky. It would have been quite a debacle to go downstairs to get the stupid t-shirt that like he had to go to the bathroom, get the spider suit. Like, what the hell? That sequence alone is less believable than your comment about. You know what I mean? Like my brain starts to unravel things in movies where I'm like, that shouldn't work. And I let it go because it's movies.
and
I let
wait,
it go. But still,
how about the fact that a grown man is going to let a teenager go around in a t-shirt and boxers?
another problem. Now, we've talked about this
There
on
you
the
go.
show before. How about the fact that a grown man kidnaps, for all intents and purposes, because Peter's not allowed to choose for himself, a child to Germany and has him fight in a battle of superheroes who are illegally battling in the first place? Anyway, I digress.
Right.
The
But then we also
toxicity.
talk about we'd also have to talk about Peter's movie rental choices as well.
Right.
Yeah, no,
'Cause-
he's
'cause let's
15
face
and
it,
he's already seen
he did-
Alien, Empire Strikes Back. What else has he seen?
Yeah, no, because
Well, I saw an adult
Happy
movie.
Happy
and-
referenced that there was an adult in Far
On
From
the bill.
Home. That when they were in Germany, there was an adult movie rental on the hotel.
How did I never catch
Yeah.
that?
Bill? Yes,
Yeah,
because
he asked-
he remember Mysterio doesn't know specific things, and so
Yeah.
he said, "Tell me something that nobody else would know." And he said, there was a rental on there, and you said it was something this, but it was really that. He's like, "Okay, that's enough. That's enough."
Yeah.
Like, Peter. Yeah.
So Far From Home's the one I've seen the least. I've actually seen Eternals more, which is weird. But I'm gonna go back and rewatch it once I get Far From Home available to me. So that's why I probably don't remember that. But still, that's hilarious. And again,
Yeah.
somebody let that charge go through. I'm just saying. They
Well-
gave him carte blanche to run that hotel room however he wanted instead of locking it or whatever they could have done. They let that kid run rampant and do crap he shouldn't do. That's my point.
Yeah.
My point about the toxicity, though, is that the nuance that I think should be on TikTok is completely missing in half of Movie Talk. And on the other half of Movie Talk, it's there. And then all those people are being blasted by the trolls who just want to say, this movie sucks, this movie's cool. And
Yeah,
it's wild to
really
me.
black and white. Like, yeah.
It really is. Like, you're either on one half of the cool movie TikTok or you're sitting with trolls who want to just thrash everything you have to say. And I don't
Right.
get it. It baffles me. Sorry this evolved into this, but at the same time, we're still talking about movies.
Well, at least we're not talking about milk puns somewhere. We got away from those.
True.
You mean the milk duds?
Oh
Yeah.
boy. So, um, one thing I was thinking about doing was because and I was hoping you guys could tell me while we're here on the show, even the chat can throw it out. I'm trying to figure out a list of movies that kind of all fit the fanboy film like list. So like I'll mention a couple and they should automatically make sense, but Fight Club comes to mind, Scarface comes to mind.
You talking about like film bro movies?
Film bro type films. So Scarface, Fight Club, Taxi Driver, Joker.
Anything Quentin Tarantino. Yeah.
Anything Tarantino. That's a good point. What did you said Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to ask this question because I want to start a more nuanced conversation on TikTok in general and just be like, if you like these movies, and just be like, look, I like some of them too. I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but I want to know why everybody likes these particular films. Other than the fact that, yeah, some of them are good production value and all that, but the bro aspect is what I want to get into and figure out why they love them so much. Because as I look at them, they all have this like same thread, and it's not a good thread. That they tend to have. It's usually a lot of violence towards women, violence towards people that they don't agree with. A lot of these films are like that. And instead of understanding that these are prohibitively telling you cautionary tales, people are like, woo! Like Tyler Durden's somebody to look up to or something. I don't know.
I think a lot of people miss the idea that they're even though it's grandizing, the violence, it's saying that this isn't a good thing,
Right.
It's kind of like The Hateful Eight. I appreciate that film. I think my favorite of the whole group is Samuel L. Jackson, but it almost makes racism funny in some cases where it shouldn't.
Django did that too.
Yeah, Django did that as well. Like, people praise Leonardo DiCaprio for like a lot of the things that he did, but yeah, that was great acting, but at the same time it was a terrible message that he was putting across. And there were probably people that watched it like, yeah, I agree with that.
I look like him. I identify with him, and so on and so forth. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think the reason that we still have a super crazy patriarchal system is the fact that we still keep letting cis white males run everything, and they get to tell all the stories still.
Right.
Like I'm the more I've looked at this, the more it kind of creeps me out. Like, I was talking to Lala about this, and I was like, there are a lot of movies you're telling me I should watch that I swear just never hit my radar. And then I looked down and saw my arm and realized why it never hit my radar. And it drove me nuts because as much as I love a lot of these movies, I'm like, man, I just was saturated with white production, like my whole life, saturated with it. And not because necessarily that other people of color productions weren't available, but they weren't. That's the other thing. They were prevented from making a lot of these things over the years. So there wasn't just no saturation. It just wasn't, that didn't exist. So when people started breaking out on the scene when I was a kid, such as, come on, brain, what is Spike Lee? He pissed off every white person in America because he went against the norm and said, I'm going to do something which is in your face and telling a story from my perspective that you don't necessarily understand, and it's going to piss you off. Mostly because you don't understand.
Like in the 90s, there was this whole boom of like films with people with people of color in them. Like there's just like it was insane. Like, and some folks I've seen a few people on TikTok talk about like, hey, we need to bring back this like era of like it did kind of go away because there was like the 90s. I mean, and you had Boys in the Hood, you had Menace to Society, you had all these like incredible, and they're all great films.
Well done.
And they're talking about they're talking about real stuff, and
right. And not just showing in the case of like Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood, not just showing black men as an evil criminal, which is what we grew up just being saturated with, but showing that there were friendships and nuance and people trying to become football stars and other various things that and when I was 14 made me go, all right, people are people. So, but that's still in itself kind of gave me a false sense. Well, okay, they're making movies now, so everything should be good. And now I'm 45 years old.
I think Hollywood felt that way too.
Right. So now I'm 45 years old.
Okay, we gave you your moment. Now we're going to continue going back to cis white stories.
And I agree that did happen. But
what's interesting is there's different scales of that as well. Like Lala was just mentioning, she grew up watching white television, so she was always looking forward to dissecting a frog, which she didn't do that. Now my school I grew up with was
Mm.
extremely diverse, and I was the if you would consider it the minority, like we were number Caucasian kids, and then the Middle Eastern kids were kind of like the lower number of the group of the school, and we still had those things, but at the same time, we're talking about a less economically and um, uh, people group diverse area. The schools might have been diverse, but let's say the neighborhood wasn't, or the state wasn't, and then Virginia versus let's say Michigan, or let's say Los Angeles, or like California with like Oakland, Los Angeles. It's going to be different debate based on what is the norm in those areas. Like
Right.
experiences are completely different.
Well, see, I went
And
to the richest school in my county, like straight up the richest school in my county, which means we had everything. Everything you see in the movies, we had it. We had a radio station, we had a TV station. Like it was ridiculous what we had available to us in high
Right.
school, and I took that for granted. I thought that was just what everybody got. And as I learned that what Marvelite's saying, it literally depends on where you grew up, depending on whether you even had books or not. Like we could go off on a very political
too,
discussion here,
like-
but anyway.
Yeah, and it can even get more divided up because like I grew up here in Portland, and like my high school was felt very diverse because it was like what's called a magnet school. So like you weren't relegated to just your area. Like if you went to this school, you could come from wherever really,
Right.
within reason of the
Mhm.
Portland metro area. But if you went to a different school in another part of Portland, it was completely different. I mean, like that school probably didn't have, so I grew up thinking like, yeah, I thought all these schools were diverse and we're all like we had a radio station too, but we had like, it was a different kind of area, but
Yep.
going to like North Portland, say, which was a more rougher part of Portland
Right.
at the time, didn't have that, so it's like
I think the reason that both
Yeah.
of you experienced that, because even the rich school that I went to, there was diversification, because I think that schools, once segregation became a thing, started pulling kids from all sorts of different areas within the counties in order to truly
Right.
diversify the school, while the outlying areas didn't get diversified at all. Nothing changed for the families, for the parents living in
No,
those
no.
areas, or the housing. None of that changed, but the school itself changed,
Oh, yeah,
giving us this
exactly.
false sense of diversity.
Yeah.
Because even when I would go home, my friends didn't live on the same street as me. Like if I had friends who were people of color, they lived in a completely different part of town from me. That's something that should have been something that dawned on me then. Like especially when I went to the rich school in San Rafael, there were two different parts of town. There was basically white town and then Latino town, and
Right.
that's where how San Rafael is broken
Totally.
up. And it's terrible, but the more I
Yeah.
look at it, I'm like, holy shit, that's true. Like.
Mhm.
And I never thought about it. My girlfriend lived down in what they called the canal. And of course it had to be called the canal. It couldn't be called, Notting Hill or something beautiful. It's like, it's always something, the areas are always something drab, or I don't know. Even
Yeah.
the language is
That's all right.
terrible. Anyway,
I
I'm
live
sorry.
where I grew up living in Arlington. Like I went to like where I went to school. I was the only like light skinned person, and literally it was called the Valley. It was just- that was-
Yeah.
like that was the area. It was the Valley, and it was like the whole community was was black, and I didn't know anything differently. In fact, it was sad because in kindergarten I had to come home crying because I realized I wasn't black.
Oh.
Because the kids told me, because I
Oh.
wanted to play house, and they said you can't.
Because
can't
you
be the
weren't
dad.
black.
I couldn't be
Oh,
the father because I wasn't black. I was the only white,
Oh, gotcha.
like visibly white kid in the school. So,
Right.
it just upset me, and so that was my first time understanding that there was a difference. Other than I always thought people look different. I get that their skin color, but like I wasn't colorblind. People who say they're colorblind are really just trying to be closet racist.
Right.
I looked at skin color being different was the same as like your hair color was different, your eye color was different.
Everybody's a little different.
Everybody's a little bit different. That's just how it is. But like, and then we ended up moving because there was an issue with like drugs in the school, and I got moved to a different school, and that was when I was around a whole bunch of white kids, and I didn't know what to do. Like the
Mhm.
entire mentality of the kids were like, I just felt like it was too much drama. Like I just like I don't know.
No, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
No, I grew up around nothing but white kids mostly. So yeah, we're full of drama. That's for sure. What's interesting for myself is I grew up military brat. I grew up on military bases for the first almost 10 years of my life. And military bases are strangely one of the most diverse places in this country, because there is like a forced diversity, but in a way that's because it's for the greater good. So in the military, they always say you're green, you're no other color. And although that's not true, and there's plenty of racism in the military, the way they set up base, the way that they house people is completely with that in mind. And so I grew up with people of all sorts of different races in on my street. So one of my very first best friend when I was a little kid was a black kid named Marvin who lived 5 doors down from me. Still remember his name. Don't know where in the world he is. If you happen to be watching this, Marvin, remember me. I would love to say hi. But that's a fond memory. And the whole crew on that street, we were all just kids from a variety of different parents. So again, I grew up kind of blinded in a sense, not knowing that the rest of the world wasn't dealing with that being normal. Um,
Yeah.
so I've had these weird perspectives, variety of perspectives, but even then, after all of that being who I am, I still find myself going, wait a minute, we're still neck deep in this crap and nobody's wanting to change. And those that aren't powerful enough to change it fast enough. I am on a soapbox. I'm going to jump off this box now.
I know, right?
Well,
We
I
were
mean,
talking about musicals.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why movies, I think, are so important.
Thank you for
Because
bringing it back around.
I mean, yeah, like you gotta. For me, I want to see, like, we talk about the same story has been told over and over again,
Yep.
and but what makes it more interesting is like when it's directed by a woman, for me, or it's written by a woman. Like that's why I talk about Thelma and Louise. I'm like a big Thelma and Louise fan. Like that was, I mean, Ridley Scott directed it, but um, Kitty Curry wrote it, and it's like a textbook screenplay. It's like a screenplay that's studied. I tell people all about, like, read that screenplay if you want to learn how to write a screenplay. Read this one and Witness and like, but and then like of course it's and Gina. I did that whole series about Gina Davis where Gina Davis did this like series of films that were all about feminism and like women empowerment and like Thelma and Louise. I think we need to see more of those kind of films that's like from another perspective.
Well, it's like when Catherine Bigelow did the Hurt Locker and she beat out her
Yeah.
ex-husband. Like
Mhm.
you beat
Yeah,
James
that's like my
Cameron for
favorite thing.
Avatar, and like
For Avatar, yeah.
it was like extremely exciting. And then like
I know.
I mean,
It was
even
so
we
cool.
talk about like even with Marvel movies, Chloe Zhao did a fantastic job with
Yeah.
Eternals. I mean, you look at all of these things, and then you have like Shang-Chi, and you get this discussion of where representation truly does matter, because
Mhm.
you cannot expect, and it's the Black Widow effect. You had the writer for Black Widow who wrote jokes that were not tasteful, and
Mhm.
it took the female director and the actress to take that joke and make it appropriate, and basically was
Mhm.
a smack in the face to the writer, because they were tone deaf, because
Yeah.
you shouldn't have a guy writing stories about
Yeah.
a female led story. Yes, you can have people that are consulting and help with, like,
Right.
character
Writers' rooms
story
can still be
building,
a
like,
thing. Like we're not saying don't
exactly.
have people
Right.
with
Yeah.
perspective in a film, or even the fact
Right.
that there's going to be male characters in some films too. So you'd still want
Yeah.
some input on that. But
Right.
yeah, you're right. You're right. We
And
are
No Time to Die was the same kind of thing. You know, um, they brought in, her name's gonna escape me, but she did Fleabag, um, but she was brought in to punch up some of the script for No Time to Die,
interesting.
because of, yeah, mostly because I think Phoebe Waller Bridge, that's her name. Thank you. She did some work on, because there's like, a very strong woman agent in that character that was the 007. It was taking over the 007 moniker, so they needed to bring in someone to like punch that up because it wasn't,
I haven't seen the
you
film
know,
yet.
yeah.
Neither have I.
Oh, sorry, but well,
It's okay. This is not No
yeah,
Way Home level spoiler,
it's
so I'm good.
right. Yeah, no, it's not. I mean, you kind of get it from the trailer anyway that she's, yeah, but
I
yeah, see
figured
that,
I figured that was the direction that they were going to go, and I was hoping that they would.
right.
But I
Well,
told my wife,
you'll
'cause my
see
wife
though in
saw
the
it
film.
in Target today, and I was like,
Yeah,
I really need to watch the one before this before I go watch it, because I'm
yeah,
just behind
yeah,
on 007. At some point, you get tired of watching, this action adventure about a white agent. Like it gets tired after a
mhm,
while.
yeah. It was a really great way to end Daniel Craig's era, but um, I never cried at a Bond movie, so I'll tell you that much.
I don't think we rated Tick Tick Boom, but we are out of time, so we're gonna have to do it very, very
Oh
quickly.
yeah, we didn't.
We didn't rate it, but
Okay.
we got to do this very quickly. So just give me a number. All the movie things.
Tick Tick Boom, man, it's like a 9.5 for me.
Ooh, solid. Mr.
Phenomenal.
Marvelite,
Yeah, really great.
It's a 9.
solid. I think I
Yeah.
rated this one an 8. I think I thought Les Mis was better, but I still liked this
Mm.
quite a bit, and I think everybody should watch this movie. This is
Yeah.
definitely one everybody should see. So Haley thinks it's a 1 million out of 19.
Yeah, what is that? What is
I think. I didn't know you could go above 19 out of a 19 scale. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and raid the Raven Armed again because he's a very cool guy and he's got lots of viewers and it's kind of fun to raid bigger people. I would raid Felicia Day, but we found that that doesn't work anymore. And you know what sucks about that more
Yeah.
than anything tonight? She's actually doing a guild special and all of the guild members are on with her right now as we speak. So once you
Ooh.
leave the Real Study, if you love the guild, go over and check out Felicia Day and say hi. Other than that, we are going to raid the Raven Armed. This has been the Real Study. I hope you guys have a
Have a
great
wonderful
night.
night.
Thanks, guys.
Of course, we're still here as we always are, but there was our final
Yeah.
ending for the podcast. But yeah, come with us on the raid, guys, and we will do more movies. Nobody picked any movies tonight, so we have a fresh, full slate next week. This is gonna be interesting. And then we will have some special guests coming up very soon, so check us out. Other than that, have fun, guys.
Bye. I love his eyeliner. I don't know why.
Well done.
Yeah. He's playing a creepy. That's funny.
Yeah. Like the whole thing goes nuts. His whole screen.
I know, that's crazy.
He's playing a horror game too, so that had to be
I
scary
know.
as hell.